going to talk about the latest and the greatest of what is going on. All right. So I was watching it this morning myself, just a little bit, and I did see the defense, cross-examine the medical examiner. But we're going to give those that are behind or don't know what's going on, we just going to give them an overview of the entire case, and then we're going to move forward as to the latest and the greatest. All right. So as of the day, which is June 26, 2026, today is 06262026. Today is 06262026. It is a lot of sixes going on today. But anyway, the Blaise Taylor trial is on day 4 in Davidson County, Tennessee. This case is out of Tennessee and there is no verdict yet. Now, the latest big updates is that the medical examiner is now on the stand. Prosecutors are trying to prove that Jade Benning, the young lady that y'all see here in this picture, that Jade Benning, 25 years old, was poisoned with cocaine and alcohol mixture. While the defense is still attacking the investigation, the scene handling, and whether the state can connect the alleged poison directly to Blaise. And Blaise is the good-looking fella that y'all see up here in the blue suit. He is being charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 2 counts of felony murder. He is a former college football player that was being scouted by the Tennessee Titans. So he was on his way to the NFL when he was at 26 years old charged with meditated murdering his 5-month pregnant girlfriend. All right. The state of Tennessee is saying that he murdered her, all because he did not want her to have his baby. They saying he murdered her and the baby in her stomach because he did not want to have a baby with her. But the defense is saying, prove that shit. If he did it, prove it. And thus far, they have not been able to prove it. So here's what has come out of the case so far. The state of Tennessee theory is still pink lemonade plus cocaine dissolved in alcohol. The prosecutors say that Jade was nearly 6 months pregnant, to be exact, 5.5. And she planned a date night with her boyfriend and baby father, Blaise Taylor. And later, she OD'd on an extremely high level of cocaine. Now, they allege that Blaise put the cocaine and dissolved it in alcohol into her pink lemonade because he didn't want to have a baby. The medical examiner is the big witness for today, all right? Now, first of all, let me slow down just a bit and say this. We talked about this yesterday, that they said it was so much cocaine in her that it is something that she would not have been able to administer herself, meaning that she would not have been able to pour the cocaine in there, stir it in there, dissolve it, and drink it on her own because it would have just been too much for her to indulge. Well, what I don't understand is when they say it would have been too much for her to indulge, then how was it that she was able to indulge it by the hands of another? Do y'all understand that? If she can't pour it herself and drink it herself, then how was she able to drink it if somebody else poured it for her? Does it even make sense? It does not. All right. Now, let's continue. Again, the trial is going on in Davidson County, but that's right outside of Nashville. I think Nashville is Davidson County, though. Blaise Taylor has pled not guilty again to this charge, 2 counts of first degree and 2 counts of felony murder. This happened on February the 25th when she was rushed to the hospital after the boyfriend, Blaise, dialed 911 claiming that Jade was having some type of allergic reaction. All right. Now, the baby died 2 days after this incident on February the 27th, but Jade held on until March the 6th of 2023, which was also her 25th birthday. So she died the day of her birthday. Okay. Again, the medical examiner testified today that the medical examiner that testified is the one that performed the autopsy on Jade. All right. Now, the medical examiner took the stand and described finding from the death investigation, described the findings. The prosecutors claimed that Taylor secretly mixed cocaine with alcohol into the pink lemonade, right? Now, the main theory of the state says that Jade, again, would not have knowingly overdosed herself. And they are arguing that the cocaine was orally ingested in liquid form. Okay. It wasn't sniffed, it wasn't smoked, it wasn't inhaled. They saying it was orally ingested, meaning that she drunk it. She had to drink it. And they're saying the only way she could have done that was in some type of drink. Okay. And we found out yesterday that it was also, the cocaine was laced with fentanyl. And they said that this had to be beyond recreational use, not just a little bit of pinch here, a little bit of pinch there. It was so much that this was considered an overdose, right? Now, the state wants the jury to believe that this was not a party, not recreational use, that Jade did not do this on her own. They want the jury to believe that she was poisoned, and the only person that could have done it was the person that was left along with her when she started having the reactions, and that is her boyfriend, Blaise. All right? Now, today, or should I say yesterday, the juries was shown crime scene photos from Jade's apartment, including juice bottles and other empty drinking glasses, right? Now, here's the thing. There were 4 people that went into the home before the police was ever able to get in there and process the crime scene. 4 people went into that home. So the defense is saying, listen, y'all are trying to bring my client down, accuse him of murdering, poisoning his 5-month pregnant girlfriend, and you have no evidence thus far to connect him to the poison, to the cup. You want to know why? Because the 4 people that walked into that house, some moved things around, some took things with them. Yeah. And some allegedly cleaned up the scene, or at least, corrupted the scene, contaminated the scene. So the defense is saying, how can you say it was my client that did this when before the police was ever able to go in there, it was things moved around and it was things removed from the house? And guess what has not been found? Nothing in that house tested positive for cocaine. Nothing that the police have tested positive for cocaine except for in her system. They don't have a cup. They don't have a bottle. They don't have a fork. They don't have a spoon. They don't have a plate. They don't have nothing that tested positive for cocaine. Okay. Now, another thing, you want to know what else was not tested positive for cocaine? Well, actually, it wasn't even tested positive because the detective never tested the comforter or the washcloth that they are saying that she threw up on. There was supposed to be a comforter and they said that he tried to wipe her, the throw up off her mouth with a washcloth. It wasn't even tested positive. Well, it didn't test positive because they never tested it. That's crazy, right? This is what it says. It says, Court TV says Nicole Dowell did not test the comforter and washcloth because they contain suspected biological material, and those items were sent to an outside laboratory. This matters because prior testimony and reporting discussed Jade vomiting and the defense questioning evidence collection. WSMV reported that the defense argued some evidence was not collected, including vomit on a comforter, and also raised concern that a blood sample was turned in 2 days after Jade was hospitalized. All right. Now, here's the thing. The blanket and the washcloth was not tested by the people that testified on the stand, okay? It said Jade vomited, and the state is saying cocaine was consumed in a drink. So if she vomited and they're saying that cocaine was consumed in her drink, then that vomit could have mattered. But was it tested? Was it tested? They would have been able to see what she threw up, what all was in there. Was it in the food? Was it in the drink? What the hell was it, right? And because they trying to say it was poison, you would think that they would have tested all the food and all the drinks and all of that stuff that was left in her apartment. But they did not. They did not. All right. So let's talk about some of the main points that's going along in the case right now. All right. Let's go back up. Now, the pink lemonade has become the centerpiece of this case. On Thursday, the juries were shown the photos, right? And empty drink bottles and empty glasses, but none of it tested positive. I think I told y'all that. Now, investigators walked jurors through the apartment room by room, including photos from the kitchen, the bedroom, and the bathroom. The detective photographed the apartment and collected key items, including a comforter, washcloth, a drinking glass with liquor, and bottles were found in the kitchen. Again, they trying to say this pink lemonade is the murder weapon, okay? But the pink lemonade that was left in the refrigerator, nothing. It didn't test positive at all, okay? So the pink lemonade is the murder weapon. Why? Because they say on the comforter, they said she had a pink drink, and they said when she threw up, it was kind of pinkish, all right? So they're pointing at the lemonade as the drink. They're saying that is the murder weapon. Whatever drug that she was given, cocaine, fentanyl, whatever, but they said it was cocaine, a high level of cocaine. It was alleged put in her pink lemonade, okay? Now, the next main talking point is no cocaine was found tested on the glass, bottle, or liquid sample. So right now, one of the biggest reasonable doubts in this case thus far is that of all the items that was taken out of the house, they testify on the stand, the professionals, the forensic scientists, Nicole Dow, testified that she was not able to detect any controlled substance, all right? She tested everything. Now, they did question her yesterday, the state, and say, well, could it have been rinsed out? If somebody takes some soapy water and they rinse out the cup really good with warm soapy water, would that remove the cocaine residue? Now, she came back and said, yes, it could, right? But then the defense came back up and said, could it also mean the reason why it wasn't testing positive is because it was not there? It wasn't there at all? And she answered yes to that as well. So that put a big hole in the state's theory that they could have washed it out. They could have washed the cup away, could have washed all the cocaine away, okay? So right now, the forensic scientist said that she was not able to detect any controlled substance, including cocaine. Nothing was found, y'all. Nothing. The only place they found cocaine was in her system, but yet they want to charge and convict and sentence this young fella to life in prison without parole if he's found guilty. But they want to do that all because he was there at the time, not just because of that. That and the fact that when she called her friend on the phone, the friend is alleging that she accused her boyfriend of the one that harmed her. But we didn't heard kind of two different things. We heard that she just said, "What did you put in my drink?" And now the friend is saying she said, "Blaise, what did you put in my drink?" Okay, so the next talking point is I already went over the comfort and the washcloth that was not tested. The apartment scene was not clean and sealed from the beginning. Again, 4 friends at the instructions of the mother. Jade's mother allegedly asked them to go into the house, blow out the candle, and lock the place up and take a couple of things out, all right? And that's what they did, which I don't know why Jade's mother would even suggest that. Even if she did, I don't know if she did, but they trying to say she did. But nevertheless, they messed up the scene. They tampered the scene. You are not supposed to do that. And the reason they said they did it because they said the police wasn't moving fast enough. They did not want him to be able to go back over to the house, the apartment, and move things around because he left when the ambulance left. When they left with her body, he left with her, okay? And went to the the hospital, and stayed with her in the emergency room for a good little while, right? So because of that, the friends said they went over there and secured some items so that he would not be able to come back and manipulate the place. Now, the friends also testified that the place smelled like it had been cleaned up, like bleach and cleaning supplies or whatnot, right? However, who could have done that? It could have been, he could have done it, but also one of them could have done it, right? So, and they could be blaming this on him. Now, the main talking point for this one is the 911 call. Now, the 911 call actually helps both sides, the defense and the state, because the jury heard that Taylor, the boyfriend, the one that's being accused of this murder, is the only one that called 911. Not her best friend since grade school, not the best friend guy that she was hanging out with, not the mama, not nobody. The one that called 911 to aid to her distress and the things that she was going through was the boyfriend, the father of her unborn child that was in her stomach. He's the one called 911. So that could help both sides. It can show that he was concerned, but it also, because he said he believed that it was an allergic reaction, allergic reaction, the state is trying to say, why would he say allergic reaction unless he gave her something that she had a reaction to? Okay, so again, the defense said, why would a guilty man call 911 and stay there? But the state is saying he called it an allergic reaction when there was no sign of an allergic reaction. So the jury has to decide, was that a panic 911 call, a confused 911 call, or a conscious of guilt 911 call? Okay, let's pause for a moment and let me ask y'all, why do y'all think that Blaise dialed 911? Do you think it was panic? Do you think it was confusion? Do you think it was a conscience of guilt? Or do you think that he was really concerned and wanted help for Jade? Y'all let me know. Y'all let me know, why did the boyfriend, the kid's father, why did he call 911? Do you think he did it to save his ass, or do you think he did it to try to save Jade? Anybody want to take a shot at that before we move on? Concern. Okay, so Jamie G said he did it out of concern. Queen T said he wanted to help her. Kathleen said because he was scared and concerned, but I'm still rewatching the beginning. Okay. Rita said he wanted to help Jade. Kimberly T said, I think he was confused and thinking she did have an allergic reaction because I don't think that he poisoned her. Okay. Now, Reese Cup said he did it out of guilt. Tevis Joyce said he was really concerned. Embedded in his soul said, I think he was really concerned. He might not have known if she had allergies or not. That's true. That's true. J. Lou said he did it out of concern. Super Leo said, I think it was out of concern. Nellie Nell said because she called her friend and had no choice. I really can't say. He was acting funny and so was her so-called friend. I wouldn't be bowed to send him to prison for life. I wouldn't be what? I wouldn't be bowed to send him to prison for life. What does that mean? Scared and concerned. I don't know, you guys. What okay. So most of you guys say y'all think he was scared and concerned. All right, let's continue. So now, the first responder's testimony challenged the allergic reaction explanation, right? So one of the fire department responders testified that the call initially came in as an allergic reaction, but when she arrived, Jade was unresponsive, face down in a bedroom, and had no signs of conscious with no signs consistent with an allergic reaction. such as swelling or hives. All right. So the allergic reaction explanation is going to be a problem for the defense if the jury believes that he should have known something else was going on. But at the same time, regular people panic. Regular people don't diagnose cocaine toxicity in the moment. So the question is whether the explanation sounded genuinely confused or suspicious. Now, let me just say something about that. I wouldn't know if I see somebody having some type of seizure and foaming at the mouth. And if I say I think they having some type of allergic reaction, to be honest with you, I wouldn't know what to call it. I wouldn't know to call it allergic reaction, or hell, I may even get on the phone and say they tripping. I don't know what's going on, right? Because I am not a doctor or a medical professional. So I wouldn't know what to call it, whether to call it as an allergic reaction or something is going on and I'm not sure what it is. Like, I don't know what the hell that is. But nevertheless, by me not being a medical professional, I would not know how to explain what is going on. I would probably freak out, okay? I would probably be a little scared. And I probably will also be wondering, oh shit, you ain't gonna be trying to blame this shit on me. I will probably be on the phone saying, hurry up, hurry up. Cause I ain't trying to have this person die on my watch or something like that. So nevertheless, I don't think that will hold much weight, him saying it was an allergic reaction when they're saying that he should have known that it was a cocaine overdose or something like that. He ain't no damn doctor. He played football in college and he was 26 years old at the time it happened. He's 30 now, but he was 26 at the time it happened. I don't think that they can hold him to saying it was an allergic reaction and it was not. Because how the fuck he was supposed to know? But nevertheless, now let's talk about her friend Najee. Najee's Jackson had an emotional testimony for the state. She started crying when describing her friend while being on the stand. Okay, now she is alleging that Blaise put something in her drink based on what Jade said on the phone and based on the fact that Blaise said that he didn't want to have a baby with her, right? You know, they were supposed to be best friends, so I'm sure she told her friend, Blaise don't want to have this child, so I'm going to do it on my own. So she thinks that was motive for trying to get rid of the baby and unaliving, Jade. However, she said that Jade called her and said things like, I can't feel my legs. What did you put in my drink? You did this because you didn't want to have the baby. So the state is weighing heavy on her testimony alone. Now, her testimony is emotionally powerful because she is telling the jury what Jay allegedly said before everything went bad. So they're saying she is the last person that's basically heard Jay's words, okay? And now it's saying that she also said that Jade said that she was feeling really sick. Now, this is the first time I've heard of that. I didn't even hear that on the stand. But anyway, said that Jade said she was feeling really sick. And again, they're trying to point at Blaise because one, there was text message said that he didn't want to have a kid with her. And two, they had broke up for a little period. Three, they had planned that date night. And four, it happened on his watch. But now let's back up a little bit for those that are just coming in. On the day that this happened, which was February the 25th, they were supposed to be having a date night. Now, this is her best friend. She's already told her best friend that she's having a date night with Blaise. But what happens? Her best friend, along with another friend, Keontae, they pop up unannounced, uninvited, okay? So they popped up to the house while Blaise and Jade was there. Blaise actually asked them or insinuated that they could have stayed over longer to play spades, but they declined, okay? Because I guess Keontae had something else to do that night. He was going out. So they came to the house and got them something to eat and went back to Keontae's house to eat before Jade called them saying something was going on. Now, with that being said, once Jade called her best friend and said something was going on, her best friend never called 911. Who did she call? She called Keontae, the same person that had went over to Jade's house prior to this incident. So in my opinion, I believe the defense is going to be able to say Blaise wasn't the only one around Jade that day. Okay? That day. Also, Naya was there. Keontae was there. And then an hour later, something is wrong with Jade. Something is wrong with Jade an hour later. Okay? Now, I mean, I don't want to accuse the friends of doing it, even though I see somebody, Super Leo said, I don't believe Naya and Keontae laced the drugs. You don't believe they did? So they may not. I don't know if they laced it or not. But right now, I don't see how they can stick it to him. I don't see how they can stick it to him. The scene was contaminated. It was more people around her, and nothing in that apartment tested positive for the drugs. Nothing. Nothing that they was able to take out tested positive for the drugs. And it was the friends that went in there and removed things and moved things around. It was them that went in there and took out evidence out of the home. It was the friends. It was not Blaise that took anything. It was them. So now, because he said he didn't want to have a kid, a lot of guys say they don't want to have kids. They say initially, and then they end up having it's husbands that say they don't want to have a kid, and they still end up staying married to the wife. And even after the kid then came. My husband is one of them. My husband told his ex that he didn't want to have a kid, and now she is 27 years old. She's 27 years old. And he told his wife at the time that he did not want to have a child, okay? And again, she's 27 years old, so he didn't go and try to poison her is what I'm trying to say. So everybody that say that they don't want to have a kid is not trying to kill you. They might just be expressing their true feelings at that moment, okay? But sometimes things change, all right? She said that might come back to bite her and point her out without trying to blame Blaise. I think he was concerned. I feel like Jade was a low-key drug addict. So that I'm glad you said that, Super Leo, because that is another thing that the defense is trying to say. The defense theory is you cannot pinpoint this on my client because Jade was known to consume drugs before all on her own. She smoked weed, she did mushrooms, she did Adderall, and some other shit, okay? So because she has tampered with drugs on her own, sampled drugs and this, that, and the other, and even mentioned it while pregnant, then the defense is trying to say she could have done that on her own. She could have consumed drugs on her own, okay? Now, we don't know if the friends gave her drugs before. We don't know that. We don't even know if she took drugs earlier that day and then took some more later that day. We don't know that. We don't know. So, and I don't think the state knows either. The state wants to find someone to blame it on, and right now they are blaming it on Blaise. Now, I believe that there's so much reasonable doubt. What about you guys? Well, before we get into the reasonable doubt, let me tell you what the defense theory is. The defense is not just saying my client Blaise didn't do it. They are also pointing to Jade's alleged drug and alcohol history. The defense claimed that Jade drank and used drugs, including marijuana, mushroom, Adderall, and sometimes she infused her own food with marijuana. The defense also said that she planned a spontaneous date night with Taylor, but they were not going to have alcohol because he did not drink. Oh, see, I didn't even know that. Did y'all know that Blaise does not drink? Huh. I did not know that. Did y'all know that Blaise don't even consume alcohol? So anyway, it also says that Blaise attorneys is arguing Jade's death was not intentional poisoning because, not intentional poisoning, but an overdose from her own drug use. And they question witnesses about recreational marijuana and alcohol use. So the defense want the jury to see this as a tragic overdose, not a murder. But the state is pushing back hard, saying that the level of cocaine was too high for normal recreational use. especially for someone preparing and happy that they are having a baby. Okay, so the medical examiner testimony is so important because they are the one that said that this could not have been recreational use. So now let's talk about reasonable doubt. Do you guys see the reasonable doubt? Do y'all see the reasonable doubt? She said, I believe there's a lot of reasonable doubt as well. Yes, I do too, Lisa. That's probably why he didn't want a baby with her, because she drank and did drugs that he wasn't down for. A lot of athletes don't drink. Okay, I didn't know that. Shit, I did not know that. I did not know. Like, my husband don't drink. A lot of people think that just because you a man, I guess, that you drink beer, you drink liquor, you drink wine or whatever. My man does not drink. My man does not smoke at all. I'm talking about nothing. Okay? There's too much reasonable doubt. I wouldn't be able to send him to prison if the friends would have stayed out of the house and didn't take anything. It would be different. Yep, you're right. They contaminated the scene, in my opinion. They did too much. You can't send him to prison. How in the world can you send someone to prison when everything is they effed up this case? She said 50 Cent is a rapper and he doesn't drink. I did not know 50 Cent didn't drink. I did not know 50 Cent did not drink, y'all. I did not know that. So anyway, let's talk about this reasonable doubt, because I am with y'all. There is too much reasonable doubt. How in the world is the state going to be able to knock down this reasonable doubt? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the reasonable doubt. No sympathy. We're not talking about sympathy, outrage, anything, right? We're talking about just proof. The state has Jay's alleged statement from her friend, okay? The pregnancy motive, the medical examiner, and the high level of cocaine. That's what the state have. But the defense has no cocaine was tested in the glass. It wasn't found in the glass, the bottle, or liquid samples. Questions about whether the actual cup was missing or clean. People entering the apartment, items being removed, items being moved, and the medical examiner matter of death was unknown, undetermined. Okay, so that could be challenged. So the question is not, do we feel bad? Of course, there was a death, so people feel bad. But the question is, did the state prove that Blaise Taylor intentionally planned to poison and carry out the poisoning of Jade Benning beyond a reasonable doubt? So I ask you, do you think the state has proven poison beyond a reasonable doubt so far? Yes. Matter of fact, let's do a poll. I just started a poll, all right? It's for, we have, do you think the state has proven poison beyond a reasonable doubt so far? All right, let's go. What do y'all have? What do y'all have? Okay, you guys can vote. Candy Girl said, goal alert, Loud Talkers. We need just 23 more super chats to hit our target. Every amount counts and every contribution helps support the channel. Let's come together to show Amoira some love. Thank y'all so much. I appreciate y'all. Appreciate y'all so much. My husband don't smoke nor drink. Was he an athlete or was he a scout? Now, he did college football. He was a college football player, and he was being scouted for the Tennessee Titans. A lot of reasonable doubt. They never test a food blanket and too many foot traffic. Now, they did test it. They tested it, but it wasn't not found with cocaine on it. So, and they didn't test all the food that was in the house. No, they said they tested a sample. They said they tested a sample. Okay? So thank y'all so much. Appreciate you, Candy Girl. So we got 19 votes so far. Let's get a little bit more than 19. We got 79 people in the building. We should have at least 70 votes, y'all. 70 votes. Come on, you guys. Let's do the poll. Let's do the poll. I see 20 votes. Come on, you guys. 50 more people. Let's vote right quick. Now, we do have people say, yes, the evidence is strong. That's interesting. Who is saying the evidence is strong? I'm just curious. Who is saying the evidence is strong? They are talking about the blanket now and the testing. All right, we'll go to it right quick while this is coming in. Let's go to Court TV. And let's listen to them talk about the blanket.
The difference is the preparation, but a preparation may vary even on, say, a tissue sample. I may not use the same preparation for this liver tissue sample that I used for that brain tissue sample. So that's where that preparation step can vary a little bit, but it is done to get that biological matrix into a format that can be tested on those validated methods.
Because without you doing that, you can't test it. And my point is, there's nowhere in NMS labs, any of their systems, any of their standards of procedures that you can go to pick out what you had to create in order to test this particular.
There's a general standard operating procedure for forensic investigations, but it is highlighted in that standard operating procedure that the exact controls and the exact process for performing that extraction will vary based on the nature of the sample being tested or what we're trying to remove that biological matrix from. So in the past, we've tested, I shouldn't say we, the laboratory has tested things like tampons, used clothing, bedding, sheets. We've been asked to pull blood off of metal. So each one of those matrices is going to be very different, and the ability of us to pull that fluid or that biological sample off of that object is going to vary.
So if you've had it, why did you have to create a whole new one? Why did you have to get one that's only unique to this case?
Because each one of these requests is different. Each one of these.
I agree, Rayshawn. I agree.
Aren't going to be the same. They're not going to be the same matrices. It could be blood, it could be urine, it could be vomit, it could be brain matter, stomach contents. And so this is one of those instances where you really have to use an experienced toxicologist or person to go in there and try and determine where that location is for the biological sample and pull out a proper sampling from the article of clothing or metal or wood or whatever it is.
So can you explain then why is the standard written as opposed to one that NMS normally utilizes? This is not what you normally do, is it?
That's my handwritten notes that I was taking contemporaneously, telling you every step that I did that day.
Okay. Isn't this what you had to use in order to extract it?
That was me writing down exactly what I did during that extraction process.
And that is something that was unique to this case that has not been peer reviewed and or tested.
It was technically reviewed. It was technically reviewed by another scientist at the laboratory.
After you created, I'm talking about prior to.
But I was still following my standard operating procedure. I was using a methanol extraction. I was creating all the proper controls that are written in that standard operating procedure. I was following the method, but that method or that procedure gives me some flexibility in how I need to do that. So I was giving you very specific documentation of how I specifically did that.
If you could please just answer my question. Outside of the individuals who tested.
You'll just ask a question instead of adding what you want everybody.
You know, the prosecutor just jumped up. Objection! You know, this is so biased, and we've seen this throughout the trial so far, that the judge has definitely been on this prosecutor. You know, I don't know if it's because she's young and new, but, you know, the judge is definitely favoring this DA, this prosecutor right here, right? And you could just definitely see it. They've been very hard on the defense, you know. We've noticed it. We've seen it, you know, for whatever the reason. She definitely, the young prosecutor right here definitely has weight in this courtroom. So right now, the defense attorney just asked the lady, can you just answer my question? And the prosecutor jumped up, objection, and the judge takes over, basically saying, you know, if you could just ask her the question this way or that way, you know?
Here, and what you think is very flashy, just ask a question.
Your Honor, I promise I'm not doing that. I just want her
Don't
to answer
outlive
the question.
everything.
has it outside of the people in NMS after you created it? Is there anyone else that has peer reviewed this test so that it is
They have to
a
peer
separate
review
science?
this test under 702.
If the court feels that way, I'm fine. I just want to be able to ask the
How
question.
could they peer review it when it just happened?
And that is my point as to why we were objecting to the
Have
validity.
you ever had you personally, had any samples taken from a comforter that you found vomit on with some drugs in that you published or had peer reviewed
I mean, so this was included in a publication
afterwards?
after the test was performed, along with other forensic investigations that our laboratory has performed.
What you're saying is unique is taking it from a comforter.
It's not even that that part is unique, it's just the having to do some extra steps to really prepare that sample is unique. I can't treat it just like a blood.
So what you did that makes your results unreliable.
I don't believe so.
Okay. Anything else?
No, Your Honor, we would object and ask for a ruling from the court as to
Object based on what?
that it has not been peer reviewed in
What
our
has
test.
been peer reviewed?
The methods that she had to create in order to perform this, in order for it to
You've never done any samplings from any garments or blankets or
The-
blouses?
The laboratory has, that's what I'm trying to say, and we published on it. We share those duties. So I performed this one physically on a comforter. Other toxicologists within the company have performed them on other items of clothing. And so we did write up this unique preparation. It's not, and I wouldn't say it is unique to NMS. It's a similar method that's used for other types of unusual matrices. So dried blood spots, that's a very common test that's used in toxicology. It's a similar technique to that.
You've done that?
Dried blood spots I actually have in a previous job.
Does the state have any questions? On their objection, do you have any questions on this problem?
Judge, I feel like she's going.
Okay, you can step down.
Thank you.
So I would literally have to go back a little bit to see what that was about. Are y'all good with that? Let me just go back a little bit and see what was that about, because they were talking about the blanket and it just seems like that was a little hostile. So let's go back a little bit.
Disagree with Dr. Carney using that.
Correct. I'm not disagreeing with Dr. Carney.
And the state never asked you to calculate a dose, but you can't calculate the dose.
I went back too far.
And just
I went back too far.
So the testing itself is, the only step that's unique is that initial.
Thank you, Perfectly Imperfect.
Just have to see what the jury's making.
She said, I don't like this judge attitude toward the defense. I know.
And it's
Judge is a pure
Dr.
asshole and is. I know for a fact that the judge and prosecutors, they're
Yeah.
all in favor of the state. Too damn corrupt.
Perfect.
Yep.
So we don't have to take
I
another
agree.
break of the comforter.
I'm not sure what's going on right here. She said the judge is blowing me. Yes, please make sure you guys thumb up this video so YouTube can send it out to more people.
Yes, yes, step up, raise your right hand, you swear to tell the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Have a seat. Doctor, you testified previously in the jury out hearing the defense has made a statement that you made up. Did you do testing on the company?
I did.
They've made a statement that you made up that test. Is that accurate?
No.
So it sounds like the defense is saying that she made up that test. And so the judge is asking her, is that accurate? Did you make up the test? And she's saying no. So let's find out what's going on from here.
Do you have questions about whether she made up a test?
Yes, briefly.
Okay, go ahead.
The testing that you
You
do.
can, so we can hear it on the
I'm
mic.
sorry, thank you.
Hey, big sis.
The testing, Dr. McKinnon, that you utilized for the comfort, was that a standard test that was previously approved and accredited?
So the physical testing on the instruments is,
On the comfort?
yes, but the preparation of the sample is unique. So how we figure out where to sample on the comforter, and then we do an extraction method to pull biological fluids and samples off of that inanimate object. But once that is extracted off of the comforter itself, it's run under the same methods that have been validated in the laboratory. So the testing itself is the only step that's unique is that initial preparation step.
And the preparation would be the gathering of the matrix from the actual comforter.
It's selecting the portion of the, in this case, a comforter, but selecting where you're going to be pulling samples from and testing. And then we prepare control samples in parallel along with the unknown sample being tested to show that the extraction is working properly, that all the steps in that process are working properly. So it's still following all those same scientific methods.
Once you get the actual matrix to test, but in order to remove the actual substance to test, that is something that is unique, correct?
It is unique in this case, yes.
And that is something that,
Why is that?
Why is that? Because they're so rare that we get these kinds of cases, and each case is different. It could be a bloodied t-shirt. It could be a bloodied napkin. I mean, we don't do DNA testing, but we only do the drug testing, but it's,
So you cut something off of something that was on the comforter.
we cut, squares, sample squares out of the comforter where stains were, and in other locations where there were no stains.
Is there anything in that process that affects your finding?
We use the controls to make sure that they're not going to impact our findings.
Is there anything in that process that affects your finding?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, we run the same internal standards and the same controls that we do with a normal blood sample.
didn't you have to use another control in order to make the test work that wasn't actually assigned to this particular matrix?
We do that as a safety control.
I don't know what a matrix is.
Matrix is just another term for a specimen, whether it's blood, urine, it's just a general term.
And what is your question?
The control that you developed originally didn't work, right?
No, that's incorrect. The controls worked.
What is it that you had to utilize from something else?
Oh,
Yes.
I believe you're asking about the external control. So in addition to, we take control spaces on the garment when possible, places where there are no stains. We also do an external control. It's called a negative external control. That is an additional quality control sample to ensure the accuracy of the test and ensure that contamination isn't occurring in the laboratory, that our processes are working. It's just an extra safety and control measure performed.
But when the lab became accredited, they did not approve the method that you utilized to extract the matrix from this comforter, did they?
I'm not sure that that is under an accreditation. A forensic investigation like that isn't a category of accreditation.
Well, has that method ever been tested by your peers in terms of the one that you created, unique for this test?
It was peer reviewed and published.
I'm not speaking about for this test. Prior to this particular testing, that unique test that you created, has that, prior to this situation, been peer reviewed and are tested and are accredited?
Forensic investigations aren't under an accreditation category. So as far as I'm aware. The actual test itself.
So let me explain what's going on right now, because I had to look it up. So basically it's saying the defense is trying to say, the defense point was basically, doctor, you are relying on a test from a lab, but was that lab accredited to do this type of forensic toxicology testing? The reason why it mattered is because the blanket had vomit and biological material on it, and the state is using testing connected to that evidence to support the idea that Jade orally ingested the cocaine. The defense want the jury to question the reliability of the testing process. So the defense angle is they want the jury to trust, if you want the jury to trust these results, but the lab doing the testing may not have had the proper accreditation or forensic certification for that type of analysis. So how reliable is that? So the defense is trying to say they made up that type of testing because it's not accredited, okay? Defense was not just asking about the blanket to be asking. They were getting into whether the lab that handled or tested that blanket evidence was actually accredited for that kind of testing. Because in a murder trial, especially a poisoning trial, you do not get to just say a lab said so, okay, and keep it moving. The defense said what lab, accredited by who, qualified to test what, and why should the jury rely on it, all right? So they're basically saying this matters because it was already tampered with, and on top of that, they tested it, but the testing that they did is in question, all right? It's not just about the blanket. It is about whether the State Forensics Foundation is clean enough for a first-degree murder conviction. All right, do y'all get that? Let's continue. She said, oh, the defense is trying to say test was fake. Yes, the defense is trying to say they made up how they got to the results, okay? It's not accredited. It's just something that she's saying that they peer tested it, like the peers came up together and created something and said, this is how we're going to do it. And she said, that's not state certified. You can't just do that. So the way you test it is not basically legal standards. It's not good enough. Okay.
Test and the analysis is valid and accredited. The difference is the preparation, but a preparation may vary even on, say, a tissue sample. I may not use the same preparation for this liver tissue sample that I use for that brain tissue sample. So that's where that preparation step can vary a little bit, but
thank you, Devon.
It is done to get that biological matrix into a format that can be tested on those validated methods.
Because without you doing that, you can't test it. And my point is, there's nowhere in NMS labs, any of their systems, any of their standards of procedures that you can go to pick out what you had to create in order to test this particular.
There's a general standard operating procedure for forensic investigations, but it is highlighted in that standard operating procedure that the exact controls and the exact process for performing that extraction will vary based on the nature of the sample being tested or what we're trying to remove that biological matrix from. So in the past, we've tested, I shouldn't say we, the laboratory has tested things like tampons, used clothing, bedding, sheets. We've been asked to pull blood off of metal. So each one of those matrices is going to be very different, and the ability of us to pull that fluid or that biological sample off of that object is going to vary.
So if you've had it, why did you have to create a whole new one? Why did you have to pick one that's only unique to this case?
Because each one of these requests is different. Each one of these is unique. The stains aren't going to be the same. They're not going to be the same matrices. It could be blood, it could be urine, it could be vomit, it could be brain matter, stomach contents. And so this is one of those instances where you really have to use an experienced toxicologist or person to go in there and try and determine where that location is for the biological sample and pull out a proper sampling from the article of clothing or metal or wood or whatever it is.
So can you explain then why is the standard written as opposed to one that NMS normally utilizes? This is not what you normally do, is it?
That's my handwritten notes that I was taking contemporaneously, telling you every step that I did that day.
Okay. Isn't this what you had to use in order to extract it?
That was me writing down exactly what I did during that extraction process.
And that is something that was unique to this case that has not been peer reviewed and or tested.
It was technically reviewed. It was technically reviewed by another scientist at the laboratory.
After you create, I'm talking about prior to.
But I was still following my standard operating procedure. I was using a methanol extraction. I was creating all the proper controls that are written in that standard operating procedure. I was following the method, but that method or that procedure gives me some flexibility in how I need to do that. So I was giving you very specific documentation of how I specifically did that.
If you could please just answer my question. Outside of the individuals who tested.
You'll just ask a question instead of adding what you want everybody to hear and what you think is very flashy. Just ask a question.
Your Honor, I promise I'm not doing that. I just want her
Don't
to answer the
ad-lib
question.
everything.
Has it, outside of the people in NMS, after you created it, is there anyone else that has peer reviewed this test so that it is
Somebody has to peer
accepted
review
science?
this test under 702.
If the court feels that way, I'm fine. I just want to be able to ask the question.
How could they peer review it when it just happened?
And that is my point as to why we were objecting to the validity.
Have you ever had any, you personally?
So it sounds like they created a way of testing something just for this case alone. This is the first time they've used this method of testing on this particular case, right? So she's saying, because it's never happened before, but she's saying it was peer reviewed, her peers reviewed it. And she's saying, well, it can't fly in this case because it is not basically an authorized test. It's not justifiable enough. And so, but the lady is, the medical examiner, the doctor is basically trying to say, but it is good, even though this might be the first time using it, it's still good because we peer reviewed it. So it passed the peers way of doing it, but she's like, no, because it has not been done before. It was only done just this time. It's the first time.
Any sample taken from a comforter that you found vomit on with some drugs in that you published or had peer review
I mean, so this was included in a publication
afterwards?
after the test was performed, along with other forensic investigations that our laboratory has performed.
What you're saying is unique is taking it from a comforter.
It's not even that part is unique, it's just the having to do some extra steps to really prepare that sample is unique. I can't treat it just like a blood.
So what you did to make sure results unreliable?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Anything else?
No, Your Honor, we would object and ask for a ruling from the court as to
Object based on what?
that it has not been peer reviewed
What
and or
has
tested.
it been peer reviewed?
The methods that she had to create in order to perform this, in order for it to.
You've never done any samplings from any garments or blankets or blouses?
The laboratory has, that's what I'm trying to say, and we published on it. We share those duties. So I performed this one physically on a comforter. Other toxicologists within the company have performed them on other items of clothing. And so we did write up this unique preparation. It's not, and I wouldn't say it is unique to MMS. It's a similar method that's used for other types of unusual matrices. So dried blood spots, that's a very common test that's used in toxicology. It's a similar.
So in a nutshell, they made up a unique way to test this blanket in this situation. It's unique because they've never done it before. She's trying to say she's done it before on blankets and other items, but not for cases and things of that nature. So this is some type of new test that they just came up with to test the blanket, and the defense wants it thrown out. They want it objected. They do not want this to be able to fly because they created this testing just for this situation, is what the defense is alluding to.
Technique to that.
You've done that.
Dried blood spots I actually have in a previous job.
Does the state have any questions?
In a previous job.
On their objection, do you have any questions on this problem?
Judge, I think she's fully.
Okay. You can step down.
Thank you.
The court is overruling my objection, Your Honor.
I've not gotten there yet. 702, Dahlberg, GE versus Joyner, Kumo Tire. That list that's proposed under those cases is not all encompassing, it doesn't apply to every field. This lady, according to my understanding.
So right now, the defense is saying, are you overruling my objection or are you sustaining it? And he is getting ready to say what he's getting ready to do right now.
Sufficiently says that her findings aren't reliable just because having her notes that she's never cut up a comforter doesn't mean that her findings are not reliable and would assist this jury. I'll allow her to testify about the comforter.
So he just allowed it. He said that just because she's never done it before does not mean that just because she did it on this one is not good for this case. So he just allowed her testimony to be heard by the jury. So he basically is favoring the state on this one.
Or let the jury step out then.
So he overruled her objection and said that just because she's never cut it up before, that does not mean that her findings is not still the findings. So he basically is going along with the state. And you could just tell by the look on his face, in my opinion, that he know he's wrong for saying that, because he wouldn't even look at the defense attorney and say that to her, right? He kind of looked away, but he is favoring the state. So J. Lou says, so what were the results of the test? I'll find out in just a second. Hold on.
if you'll set that up, just a
I do.
Hold on, I'm just trying to find out.
Sir, would you please tell us your name and spell your first and last name?
So before we get into that, it looks like hold on. So it says the blanket was tested that it did have evidence consistent with cocaine exposure, contamination from biological material, but the defense is attacking how that testing was done and what it actually proved. So it says the Metro Crime Lab witness did not test the blankets for drugs. She said the blanket, comforter, and washcloths were sent out because they had biological material, but today the medical examiner is testifying about testing connected to that blanket. The state wants the jury to hear that the blanket supports cocaine exposure, but the defense is questioning the testing process, the lab accreditation, and whether that proves Blaise put cocaine in her drink. The defense angle is not necessarily nothing was on the blanket. Their angle is, okay, but what exactly was tested? Was it the fabric? Was it biological material on the fabric? Was the lab accredited for that kind of testing? Was the method validated for a blanket? And even if cocaine is found there, does that prove who put it there when it got there or how Jade ingested it? Okay, so the blanket may help the state with the cocaine exposure, but it still does not magically answer the $1 million question: who administered it? Where is the positive cup for cocaine, and can they prove this was poison beyond a reasonable doubt? So we just heard the judge allow the crime lab to testify that there was cocaine exposure on the comforter and washcloth. Okay. So let's continue. She says, did those ladies have the blanket? They did. They did have the blanket. They took the blanket.
It's Detective Adam Reese, ADAMREESE,
And Detective Reese, by whom are you employed?
Metro Nashville Police Department.
How long have you been with the Metropolitan National Police Department?
About 18 and a half years.
And were you working in that capacity in the month of February 2023?
Yes, I was.
What were your duties or assignments in February 2023?
I'm a detective in the homicide unit, and was at that time.
To the point of, like you're on the stand at this particular time, on about February the 27th of 2023, had you become involved in an investigation concerning a young lady named Jade Benning?
Yes, I had.
And pursuant to your duties and responsibilities with respect to that case, did you have opportunity to go to Vanderbilt University Medical Center to collect an item of evidence?
Yes, I did.
Can you recall approximately when that was?
It was on the 27th at approximately 4 p.m.
And where did you go when you arrived at the hospital?
I went to the room that Jade Benning was hospitalized in.
What was her condition, at least as far as you physically seeing her?
She was unconscious. I don't recall if she was intubated, but she was not in a position where I could talk to her.
Were there medical personnel present?
Yes, there were.
Okay. Were her family, was her mother present?
Yes.
And who was there?
Bridget Burks.
And was there?
So let me make a correction, because I just saw where you said no drugs was found on the blanket. So it says no drugs was found on the blanket. However, the biomaterial on the blanket, the throw up, was sent, and that was tested. The throw up was tested, and cocaine was found So cocaine was found on the biomaterial that was on the blanket. So the blanket itself, itself showed no cocaine, but the biomaterial, the vomit on the blanket was tested it was sent out and tested on another lab, and that is what was, the cocaine was found, okay? So it says, well, and because of that, they are connecting the biomaterial to the blanket. So even though yesterday they said the blanket was not tested with cocaine, because they sent the vomit out to another biological material lab, they're saying that did come back tested of cocaine. The vomit was. So they're connecting the two. So let's talk about the blanket transfers. So what I'm finding out, the blanket went from Jade's apartment by the way of Stephanie Franklin. She removed it. She gave it to Jade's family, who later ended up giving it to the police, and the police turned it over to the lab testing. So it went from the apartment to Stephanie, from Stephanie to a family friend, from a family friend to the police, from the police to the lab. So the blanket went 1, 2, 3, 4 places before testing. 4 places before testing. Yeah, let's see how that smooths over. I don't think that he has to. They shouldn't include the blanket. Yeah, it's gonna, in my opinion, it holds weak. I feel that it holds weak weight, and for the simple fact that it touched too many hands. The blanket touched too many hands. Like, this whole situation is so off to me. And that last detective, I really don't know what the hell he was talking about. It was so blah, you know. Let's see who this is.
Andrew, could you please tell us your name
Amanda Sweet.
and please spell your first and last name for us?
Amanda, Amanda, Sweet, Sweet.
By whom are you employed?
I'm employed by the Metro Nashville Police Department in the Crime Laboratory.
And what do you do in the Metropolitan Nashville Police Department Crime Laboratory?
I am the Forensic Services Division Director, which includes the Crime Laboratory and our Crime Scene Investigation Unit.
How long have you been employed by the Nashville Police Department?
Since 2013.
And when you
For performing that extraction will vary based on the nature of.
I did not mean to do that. Hold on. I did not mean to do that.
01. So that's the label that went on the actual urine.
the one that went into the freezer.
Yes.
So it looks like these are the detectives that went by and took a urine sample from Jade. I guess they did it while in the hospital, I'm assuming.
And what is this a photograph of?
This is a photo of the aliquot or sample of urine that was taken from the original container that was going to be shipped to NMS Laboratories. So you can see it now has a crime lab label
that the submission is 002-01-AA to represent that it came out of that original urine container, but that it is a separate sample so that we can track its movement specifically to NMS laboratories and back to our laboratory.
I will tell you that, you know, I guess I don't know why I'm just not noticing this, but it seems to me that based on race, I'm assuming that people see things differently. Because I was just reading some of the comments in court TV's, you know, their live comments, and they seem to think the defense attorney is nasty, has an attitude, and she's being mean toward all the witnesses, right? And they think the judge is just amazing, and they think the defense team is aggressive and they're the ones in the wrong and being mean. So I guess, and I'm assuming that's because majority of the people that's watching court TV, you have to be a member to even comment. They are probably, you know, they probably mix of different races, but primarily Caucasians. So they see things different than we do, because I'm sitting up here thinking that the defense is just defending her client and she's bringing out some good points. And I don't think she's being aggressive at all. However, they think the defense is being aggressive and the judge is just being on point, and they think the prosecutor is just amazing and doing an amazing job as a young prosecutor, you know? So anyway, I'm only throwing that out because it just appears that we see things differently.
State that it is currently in the laboratory. So on June 18th, I asked her to re-image everything in the case to show that it was located in this refrigerator number 6. But before she did that, I went back in the refrigerator and looked at the evidence to verify that it was in that location.
Is there any standard retention period for, let's say, blood that comes in for a DUI case?
For routine DUI cases, we will keep samples for 1 year, and then after that year, they will be destroyed unless we receive a hold request. But anybody, the defense counsel or the prosecution or an investigator, can always send us an email requesting a sample to be held. If they think that court might be coming up, you know, it might take longer than that 1 year. So we will routinely hold cases upon request if necessary.
And was there such a request made in this case?
Yes.
And you referenced having someone take pictures of the items that you visually saw were still there.
Yes.
Like we have this councils. If you take a look through those, you can recognize those.
Yes, I do.
I believe that would be 38. Publish at least 1 or 2 of these. Where is the refrigerator located where these items are?
It's within.
So right now she is just testifying that the urine sample that was taken, how she's explaining how it was taken and how they tested it to find out that it was in fact Jade's urine, which I don't know how you do that besides just, you know, verifying that it came from her, from the doctor or something. But nevertheless, she's explaining how Jade urine was tested and how they came about that it was hers.
This is with the refrigerator door open. This is the location.
And unfortunately, they had to go through all the steps of how they got the urine, how they secured the urine, how they kept it from being contaminated and all that stuff, all to say they did all of this before testing the urine. So really, they just talking about the urine. So I don't know if y'all want to hear that. But let me read some of y'all comments. She said, I don't think she's been aggressive either. Neither do I. I mean, a defense attorney, when defending a client, they have to, you know, they're on the defense. You know what I'm saying? I would think it would be expected to push back on things that is not being told properly, or you know, it's being spun another way, right? So I believe that it is a defense job to come in and defend their client. So I don't think that is being aggressive. I think that's being a defense attorney, you know. White people are often offended by our confidence. They want us to lower our eyes and speak to them with respect. Yeah, I agree with that. They, you know, some of them do have a way of thinking that our tone, our body language, you know, word choices should definitely, you know, be mild and meek, you know, because back in the day they was a yes sir, yes ma'am, yes sir, yes sir. So I do think that they expect us to be more docile, and majority of us are not. So, and that bothers them. Oh, hold on, let me see. Oh yeah, they still talk about the damn P. Some of them making up their own tests. How? Oh, that's what the defense is saying. Are you just making up the test unique to this case? You know, so she's definitely, I wouldn't even think to even mention that. Okay, so that's how you know that these defense attorneys get paid good money, because they are supposed to catch things that we wouldn't even think of. I would not have thought to say, wait a minute, you know, your testing is not even legit, right? And for her to say that, I don't know if that's something that she came up with on her own, but you know, when you can question you know, how it was tested, and then let the jury hear that it's something that this is the first time that they did it, you know, or whatever. I think that that's, if you can challenge, as a defense attorney, you're supposed to challenge everything that they're saying. You're challenging it. You challenge, like, how did you come to that? How did you get that? You know, and you make what they're saying irrelevant and not strong. So basically you weaken their testimonies. That is what a defense attorney is supposed to do, you know? She said, I would like an attorney like this defense. Yeah. I don't think Carmelo Anthony attorney was like this.
And have seen no issues or discrepancies with our ship date when NMS received the samples, when they shipped them, when they returned back to us. And we routinely use NMS laboratories, so we will make shipments to them almost every month, routinely. So this is a very common process for us.
And would that be true for any other items that may have come into the crime lab regarding this case and then gone out for further testing?
Yes, we also outsource cases for DNA to another laboratory, and they follow the same standard protocols.
And larger items or items, containers, do they eventually go back to the property room?
So it depends on the type of analysis requested in the unit. Toxicology cases do not go back to the property room. They stay in-house for 1 year, and if we have no hold requests, then the evidence will be destroyed after 1 year.
Those are my questions, Ron. Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Ms. Reese.
Good afternoon.
Saw a whole bunch of pictures that just came up, and I'm not gonna ask you about individual pictures, but one thing I was kind of noticing as they were coming across is we're talking a lot about labels and how things were labeled, and that seems to be a very important part of what you do and what the crime lab does. Is that right?
That's correct.
So you take a lot of care to make sure things are labeled accurately.
Yes, we do.
And there's a lot of different kinds of labels too, is that right?
We have, in our laboratory, our labels are pretty uniform on what we put on the case as far as a crime lab number and specific item number.
me clarify that, because that was kind of a bad question. I noticed different types of labels, like you have a label for your crime lab, right?
Yes,
And NMS Labs has their own label.
yes,
There's sometimes tape across the top that says evidence on it. That's a kind of label, right?
that would be, I would consider that a kind of seal.
Okay,
Yes.
seal, and that's important too, right?
It is.
There was even on one of those outside bags that someone wrote in marker "hold" on it, right?
Yes, that was somebody in our toxicology unit.
That's a direction, but that's kind of a label too, right?
Yes,
So there's all, and I'm being a little like, big picture here, but there's all kinds of labels that help people know what to do with certain kinds of specimens, right?
yes,
And it's important that those labels are accurate, right?
it is.
And part of your job, you're maybe not doing all the labeling, but you're kind of overseeing, making sure that everything is done in the right way, or that your lab is operating in the right way, right?
Yes,
And that's part of because you're a manager, right?
yes,
And then, am I right, and did I understand it that in your managerial role, you're kind of like a in-between person for communications between these different entities?
I'm an in-between person communicating with our police department, with other laboratories and agencies, yes,
Sure, so you work for the police department,
yes,
in the lab, but still for the police department.
yes,
Sometimes you communicate with the actual detectives or whoever's investigating the case.
yes,
Sometimes you communicate with NMS Labs.
yes,
Sometimes you communicate directly with the district attorney's office.
yes,
And as part of that, you're one of the people that helps make sure everybody knows what needs to be done in various parts of the investigation.
yes,
So if NMS Labs needs some information on what kind of test needs to be done for what specimen, are you the person that helps kind of connect that information between agencies?
Myself or the toxicology unit supervisor specifically would probably be more involved in that in those scenarios with our DUI cases. But they are the ones responsible for what testing panel is being ordered.
So, for example, and let me know if you remember this, I think we even maybe had a call about this several months ago. There was a situation in this case where there was some testing requested and some testing not requested. Do you remember that vaguely? And I'll ask more specifically if that helps.
Yes, if you could, that would be helpful.
So do you remember there was a comforter in this case that there was some testing done
Yes,
and some initial, we don't have to talk about the reasons for this or the specific results necessarily, but like initial panels suggested that there was cocaine, fentanyl, marijuana, and amphetamines at a very kind of low level screening. Remember that?
I do remember that.
And that there was some subsequent communications about what do we want further testing on. And you were involved in those communications, right?
I was with some of the specimens. I don't know, I'm not aware of all the specimens, only what came through our laboratory and was sent. But I was involved in some of what was being tested as far as ordering the panels.
Sure. And ultimately the decisions were made, we're just going to test for cocaine and fentanyl, right?
Yes,
And there were probably reasons for that. There was a lot of communication surrounding that. And then, you may or may not have been the person making that decision, but you're involved in the communications, right?
I was.
And those communications are really between kind of the toxicologist and maybe your DA's office and law enforcement who are investigating the case, right?
Yes,
And you are kind of involved in coordinating that.
I was.
And ultimately, you did end up being kind of present at like this final team meeting before a charging decision was made in this case, weren't you?
I was involved in a meeting to discuss some of the samples and what was ordered and things like that, yes.
And that was sort of with the detective and the district attorney's office, and you were kind of there to help explain what was done in the toxicology in this case, right?
Yes, what samples we had received, what samples had been sent out in regards to what we had in our laboratory.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Can you read your record?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. Thank you. Who was the next witness?
The next witness would be Dr. Benson. I do recognize the hour. If I might suggest a possibility, she could clarify the collection time for the 2 CFSRE reports.
You're ready to call her as a witness?
I am.
Okay.
I am also understanding of the time.
Or we'll go until we finish.
Look at him.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you'll step down the hall, we have.
She says she wants to call another doctor, and she says, but I want to be respectful of the time. And he says, oh, we'll go until we're finished. So again, they're on break now. They're getting ready to call another doctor for her to testify. I'm not sure what she's about to testify to. I kind of wanted to go back to let me see. I still don't see anything that would hold on, let me see what's going on right here. Oh, okay, let's go back to what was found on this blanket, okay? What the drugs that they say was found on this blanket. Let's go back to that. Hold on, let's move this. All right, let's listen right quick.
Collected after those drugs had been.
What the EMD and the cocaine was, and then how we would get to that number of the estimated concentration of cocaine in Ms. Benning's blood that night.
Yes, this is the NMS Labs toxicology lab report. That reports cocaine at 78 nanograms per milliliter and the epinephrine methyl ester at 7,800 nanograms per milliliter.
Okay, and what would that bring us to if we were doing that addition?
Yeah, so if you were to do that addition of the two, it would be about 8,000 nanograms per milliliter.
Okay, and is 8,000 nanograms per milliliter a high concentration of cocaine?
Yes, if there was 8,000 nanograms per milliliter of cocaine in someone's system, that would definitely be considered, in my opinion, a high amount of cocaine.
What is typical that you see? Do you see anywhere near 8,000 nanograms per milliliter on a daily basis?
So we do quantify cocaine in blood samples, not as routinely as NMS does. I do not recall what the highest amount of cocaine we've seen in a blood sample is, but I would think that we have seen concentrations of cocaine in the thousands. I just don't know exactly what those concentrations are.
Dr. Petrolsky, what are we looking at now?
On the screen now is the second report.
And from your discussions with Vanderbilt, do you know if Ms. Benning, if this report was after Ms. Benning had been treated in Vanderbilt?
Yes, it's my understanding, and talking with the individuals at Vanderbilt, that the first urine sample was collected prior to the individual being given drugs in the hospital, and the second sample was
I didn't mean to do that.
Collected after those drugs had been administered in the hospital, which is consistent with the results that we found.
Okay, and can you walk the jury through what medications, if you want to touch your screen, would Ms. Benning have received in the hospital and how you know they're medical grade medications?
Sure. From our perspective, when we test for drugs, a drug molecule that we see, you don't necessarily know if it's medical grade or not. That's oftentimes why we'll consult with the individuals at the hospital to understand what substances the hospital is administering, but also through sort of my experience in dealing with these cases, many hospitals administer the same drug, so it's something that we can kind of see reproducibly. So one of the first substances, acetaminophen. Oops, that was really bad. Acetaminophen is a drug that can be administered in the hospital. Acetaminophen is Tylenol. Levetiracetam, which is an anticonvulsant, also known as Keppra, can be administered in the hospital.
Dr. Petrolsky, I'm going to stop you right there. Are seizures a side effect of ingesting cocaine?
Yes, as I previously mentioned, seizures can be associated with cocaine toxicity. Next on the list is lorazepam. Lorazepam is a benzodiazepine, which is also, benzodiazepines can also be administered as anticonvulsants for seizures. And then fentanyl. Fentanyl is an opioid. Many people know about fentanyl because of its illicit uses in the street drug supply. However, fentanyl is actually a common opioid analgesic used in the hospital as well.
And is it your understanding that Ms. Benning received fentanyl at Vanderbilt University Medical Center?
Yes, that's my understanding.
And that Ms. Benning had no fentanyl in her when she got to Vanderbilt Medical Center?
So based on the testing that we performed, there was no fentanyl in the first urine sample that we tested.
I want to draw your attention to levamisole. Can you talk to the jury about what you know about levamisole and its importance?
So this right here is just a toxicology examiner, I guess that's what you call them. But they're just testifying the toxicology report, what was found. It looks like it's a whole lot of drugs that I probably can't even pronounce. Cocaine, benzoglycycline, or anyway, but a whole bunch of, it says cocaine, fentanyl, and other substance medication. Like she had aspirin. Oh, I can't even pronounce all of these, but she had a lot of different drugs found in her system that she tested positive for. That is crazy to me. But it says, basically it says, if all of these substances are showing positive, then why is the conclusion focused on cocaine? What were the actual levels? Oh, wait a minute, hold on. So this is what it says. It says, in this part of the testimony, the toxicology report was being used to show what substance were detected in Jade's blood sample. It says that it tested positive for cocaine-related findings, fentanyl-related findings, and other substance medication. The medical examiner bigger testimony was that Jade died from acute cocaine toxicity and that the cocaine level was unusually high. However, it says Dr. Erin Carney testified that she could not recall seeing cocaine levels that high in over 3,000 autopsies, and she described the death circumstances as suspicious rather than looking like classic recreational drug use. But it says, okay, on the screen it shows multiple substances were present, including cocaine, metabolites, phetamine related substance, and cocatethylene. But the medical examiner was still pointing to acute cocaine toxicity as the cause of death, not fentanyl toxicity. And it says, and this is where the defense can press the state by saying, if all of these substances are showing positive, then why is the conclusion focused on cocaine alone? What were the actual levels? Which substance were from the hospital treatment? Which were from pre-hospital? And how do we know this supports poisoning instead of another explanation? All right. So it's saying that it's not even, the toxicology report is not even clean and simple because they mixed the toxicology report with what they found in her system. But some of the stuff that they found in her system was actually administered to her at the hospital. So they gave her something at the hospital, like the aspirin, whatever that is. But they gave her 6 different type of drugs for medication at the hospital. So the defense can come back and say, how are you saying that this is a cocaine drug overdose when she had a whole lot of drugs / medication in her system? Interesting, right?
When we see cocaine with people who are co-using larger amounts of alcohol, we do see it at more appreciable amounts than the small amount that we saw in the video.
Can you dissolve cocaine into alcohol to make it a liquid cocaine?
Yes, cocaine, like many drugs, are dissolvable in what we call solvents, and ethanol would be an example of a solvent.
How do you know all of those? What you say? How do they know all those drugs didn't counteract and they killed her? I was thinking the same thing. How did they know that it wasn't a mixture of shit and it was the wrong mix?
Samples for Miss Benning that you tested.
No, it was not. Cocaine was only detected in this specimen.
Right. And we talked about the hypothetical about Miss Benning's timeline. Would you expect to see more phosphoethylene if Miss Benning had been drinking alcohol?
So in cases where we do collect urine samples from people who have been drinking alcohol and using cocaine, I would say typically those amounts of cocaine are larger. But again, there's a variety of different reasons as to how the level of cocaine could be in this case, including the dose of the substances, not only the cocaine and the ethanol, but also the time associated with it.
Okay, and for that first urine to only have cocaine, benzo, and then the other metabolite, but no cocaethylene. If she had been drinking heavily and doing cocaine, would you expect to see that cocaethylene reporting above the threshold?
Yes, if she was drinking and taking cocaine together, I would have expected to see the cocaethylene in that first urine sample.
So it sounds like the state is trying to discount the fact that she was drinking alcohol with the cocaine. The defense is trying to say she mixed the cocaine with the alcohol and she did it, administer it to herself. This testimony is trying to say, wait a minute, hold on. Can y'all still hear me? I hear myself. Hold on. I hear myself. Where do I hear myself from? Give me a second, y'all. I hear echo. Hold on. Give me a second, y'all. Give me a second. Give me a second. Can y'all still hear me? Where is this echo coming from? It must be my Bluetooth. Where is my Bluetooth? Oh, here you go. Hold on. I'll be right back. Hold on, y'all. All right, sorry about that, y'all. Sometimes when I'm talking and if I have my Bluetooth near me, it will pick up. So I think that's what was happening. My Bluetooth was picking up. So I don't know if y'all actually was hearing me or not. Okay. So, but basically what I was saying is, I can't remember what I was saying. Let me just continue to play it and let me see what it was I was playing. I can't remember.
And is it your understanding that through all the other testing of Miss Benning at Vanderbilt, that there was no alcohol present in her system?
Yes, it's my understanding through talking with the toxicologist at NMS Labs and Dr. Brucaleri at Vanderbilt that the ethanol testing that had been performed by the other laboratories was negative.
And
okay, so what I was going to say is I think the defense is trying to say that she put the cocaine in there herself and that she was drinking the alcohol with the cocaine, with the pink lemonade. And the state is trying to say there was no alcohol there. They did not test for, well, not that they did not detect any alcohol. So they're trying to say, no, it wasn't alcohol. She was given this cocaine and she was not drinking. It was not recreational.
Dr. Kratulski, is there any other explanation other than just drinking alcohol or being dissolved in alcohol that you could get that cocaine?
Yes, there are other ways that small amounts of ethanol can get into your system. Some other drugs that are used may have ethanol as a minor component in them. There are some things that may be used in foods that can have small amounts of ethanol in them. So there are other ways that ethanol can get into your system other than drinking beer or other forms of drinking alcohol.
And is that consistent with how low Ms. Benning's cocoethylene percent is at, and then we don't see it again?
Yes, I would say that would be more consistent.
Right? Could it be used in cookies for like homemade cookies with vanilla extract or something like that? Could that low reporting level of cocoethylene be consistent with Ms. Benning have cooked that night?
Yes, I'd say that could be consistent.
So it sounds like they're saying that some of that, the drugs found, could have been in those cookies that she cooked, she baked that night. I'm surprised to hear the state say that, though. Okay, defense, I think is here. Oh, here she come, y'all. Here come the defense.
Good afternoon, is it Dr. Kratulski?
Yes.
I'm Letitia Quinones Hollins, and I just have a few questions for you. I first want to ask you about your forensic toxicology certifications. Did you have to go to school to become a forensic toxicologist?
So forensic toxicologist is a job, just like an electrician would be a job, or just like a chemist would be a job. So generally, there's a variety of different programs that train individuals to become forensic toxicologists. There's a variety of different ways you can get to being a forensic toxicologist without a degree in forensic toxicology. In the United States, there are no PhD programs in forensic toxicology, so many of us who have our PhDs and work in forensic toxicology get our degrees in areas like chemistry, pharmacology, sort of general toxicology, one of those other fields.
So have you had training in toxicology?
Yes, I have a master's degree in which I spent 2 years learning about forensic toxicology. I've done a variety of different research work related to forensic toxicology. I also have on-site training. So in addition to the time I've spent at the CFSRA, I actually did also work at NMS Labs for a short period of time and received training as part of that at NMS Labs. So I have received training both through on-the-job training as well as educational training to be a forensic toxicologist.
And in order to be classified and certified as a forensic toxicology, it took many hours and a lot of time dealing with toxicology to be able to be qualified as a forensic toxicologist. Would you agree?
Yes, I would. It certainly has been a lot of time and education that I've gone through. The field of forensic toxicology is made up really of 3 separate fields: analytical chemistry, forensic science, and toxicology itself. So it's learning about all those different aspects and pulling all that together to become forensic toxicology.
Thank you. Now, I want to draw your attention to, I believe that the first testing from the 2259 urine, where it's labeled 20230092 from the CFSRA.
Yes.
And I see there that we have positive results for what they call BZE, is that right?
Correct, benzoyl.
All right, so Rita said, did they check if the drugs were injected into Did they check if the drugs were injected into her what? Into her what, Rita? Into her? Injected into her? Oh, you said, did they check if the drugs were injected into her? Okay, I thought you meant into her food. I'm not sure if they checked to see if the drugs were. No, they said it had to be liquid. They said that it was liquid. It had to be liquid. Let me find out why. Give me a second.
It's called BZE for short.
Norcocaine,
Correct.
which is another metabolite for cocaine,
Yes.
and then of course the parent cocaine.
Yes.
Why would you say that I wouldn't see something here for like heroin?
Heroin is a substance called diacetylmorphine. It metabolizes to 6-monoacetylmorphine and morphine. Those substances are included in our scope of testing, so I would expect if they were present in the urine at our thresholds that we would be able to detect them and report them.
So the fact that that isn't there, it means that it doesn't appear that it was in this matrix of the urine. Is that correct?
Correct.
And my point with that is that
It said because she made the statement to her friend, you put something in my drink. You put something in my drink. And also they said that they found it in, well, her blood sample. And let me see, it said that it's because there were no obvious injections present. The statement that she made, you put something in my drink. The toxicology included cocaine and coethylene. It says, it says evidence pointed investigators toward the drinks because, well, it just said because the crime scene focused on drink bottles, glasses, a pink drink, and that's it. So no obvious injection points, where she shot herself up like a needle or anything. And the fact that she mentioned the pink drink and that the estate is saying that because of the type of drugs that they found, it had to be oral. So they don't know for sure. They just assuming because she said that you put some in my drink.
when you go now to 20230090, we see cocaethylene. Is that correct?
Correct.
And just so that we're sure, this is the urine in 20230090 of Miss Jade Benning. Is that right?
Yes, I believe that's correct.
And so we see that cocaethylene is in fact positive, right?
Yes, and we're talking about the second urine sample that was collected.
Yes, the 20230090.
Yes.
Okay. Now you said the second urine sample. When was that taken from Miss Benning?
As forensic toxicologists in our labs, we take in samples and they come with a variety of different information. In this case, the case was not given to me with the date and time collected, so it's not something that appears on our reports. That's something I would refer back to the folks either at Vanderbilt or also, I believe that information is on NMS Lab's report.
Okay. You believe that it's on NMS Lab report?
I believe it's included in their report, yes.
Okay, and that's NMS Lab report 896, based on where it says, I'm sorry, 899. NMS work order number is 230788899. Is that correct?
So I don't have the reports in front of me, and with all of the numbers, I'm having a little hard time following. Yes, if that is, I do not have that report in front of me. If that was the, yes.
This packet of yours had that.
Sorry, yes, the packet that you have. Yes, thank you. Okay, so this for this report, 2023-0090, which is our CFSRE case number, that is associated with NMS work order number 23078899.
So, as it relates to the urine where we see cocaethylene, you don't know what time it was taken. that right?
Correct. As part of our responsibility as a forensic toxicology lab, we bring the samples in, and it's our responsibility to report the results out. It's not our responsibility to keep track of when the samples were collected and to sort of marry up that information. It's our responsibility to do the drug testing and report the drugs that we find.
So is that a no, sir? You don't know what time it was taken?
Off the top of my head, no, I don't.
Okay. And so,
Is there any of your records that would take?
No, so our records do not. So you would correlate back our case number with the NMS Labs case number and the agency case number and the information they had in terms of when the specimens were collected. So that's NMS Labs or Vanderbilt's information about when the samples were collected.
so you can't say it wasn't taken at 22:59 or that it was, as the information that you have before you at this time.
Again, that's not my role. Our role is forensic toxicologist.
I'm just asking.
Okay, yes.
Yes. Now, irregardless of when it was taken, this is the urine of Jade Benning, right?
From my understanding, yes, this is the based on the conversations I've had with Dr. Rebecca Brucaleri at Vanderbilt.
Okay. And so in the same manner that you don't see, I think you called it levamisole, which is a cutting agent for cocaine, right?
Yes.
The same way you don't see levamisole in your initial testing of 202300092 is the same manner for which you don't see cocaine, right?
Yes, as I explained before, in order for us to have a positive result, there needs to be enough of the drug or the metabolite in the urine sample to meet a threshold for us to detect it. So it is possible that they were present in the urine, however, below our thresholds to detect it, so therefore we would not report them as a positive result.
Nonetheless, you have those two different metabolites that weren't present in your first results that are present in the second. Yes or no, sir?
That is correct. However, I think it's important to note that these are not replicate samples, so we don't expect to have the same results in both urine samples. These urine samples.
So basically, she's saying that there is a drug or something that showed up in one urine sample and did not show up in another urine sample. So by him saying that there was no alcohol that showed up, she's basically saying that it was inconsistent. The urine samples were inconsistent. You had some drugs show up in one urine sample and another drug show up in another urine sample. So it's likely that the alcohol didn't show up because the system is flawed or the testing is flawed. Because again, in the urine sample, one drug showed up in one and did not show up in the other.
Collected at different times. We have different results because we know that there were drugs that were administered in the hospital that we don't expect in the first sample that we do expect in the second sample.
We wouldn't expect for Vanderbilt to give someone something that would cause them to test positive for cocaine, or would we?
So again, depending on whether or not coke-ethylene was present but below our detection limits in that first sample, whether or not the coke-ethylene was formed after, that's not something that I can speak to because we don't have information about that, but it could be really either of those scenarios, or potentially either of those scenarios or others.
Okay, the statement that you just made was that Vanderbilt had treated Ms. Benning, and so that's why you'll see a difference in what is present in her urine in this later sample than you would in the first sample, right?
Yes, I said that referring to the drugs that would be administered in the hospital, things like levetiracetam, fentanyl, lorazepam, those substances that are medical grade drugs.
Are they administering cocaine, do you believe, at Vanderbilt?
No, I would not believe they would be administering coke-ethylene at Vanderbilt.
And so, if we see this in her system, then it is safe to say to this jury that she had to get it from somewhere other than the treatment she received at Vanderbilt. Wouldn't that be right?
And I apologize if I hadn't explained this well, but coke-ethylene is really not a substance that's available out there. People don't go out on the street and buy coke-ethylene. You can't sort of get it as a prescription drug. Coke-ethylene is something that's formed in the body when someone uses cocaine and ethanol. So again, this wouldn't be something that could be administered. This wouldn't be something that is ingested. It's something that's formed through those two substances.
Exactly. That person would have had to have ethanol and cocaine in their system at the same time. Yes or no, sir?
Correct, yes.
Now, so what we do know, and the reason I gave you the hypothetical of the heroin is because the only reason that it's gonna show up positive is because there was alcohol and cocaine taken at the same time for Miss Benning, right? And
Yeah.
that's why your testing came positive, yes or no, sir?
So I don't want to confuse the terms ethanol and alcohol. Ethanol is a small molecule. Alcohol, while we refer to drinking alcohol as alcohol, alcohol is really a class of substances. Methanol, for example, is also an alcohol, and there's other alcohols as well. So what I'm saying is that cocaine and ethanol come together to form cocaethylene. The source of that ethanol, as I previously testified to, is unknown, but there are different sources as to where that ethanol could come from.
Right, you said that it could have come from the vanilla extract that she put in her cookies.
I didn't say that. I said it could come from different things that are used in cooking. Could also come from, again, ethanol could be a minor component in some medications that are used. I didn't necessarily say it came from a certain a certain place. We don't necessarily know where that ethanol may have come from.
Well, actually, the prosecutor actually asked you, could it come from the vanilla extract, and your response was yes, it could.
Correct. She said could, and I said yes.
And that was my question, because you just said earlier that it could have come from vanilla extract.
I apologize. I thought you were asking me if I said that it did come from the cookies.
No,
which
I
I did
said
not.
you said it could have. But it also,
Hypothetically,
it could have come from her having a drink and then also taking cocaine, couldn't it?
Yes, that is possible, again, depending on the amount of ethanol consumed. Ethanol can come from, as I mentioned, those other sources. It also can come from drinking alcohol as well.
Now, do you know what a screen test is, sir?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
So in forensic toxicology, typically we do two tests. Historically, we refer to them as a screen and a confirmation. Screen is a way of saying, okay, well, I've tested this substance, usually for I tested this sample, usually for a large array of substances, and then we know what's present, and then we take that through a confirmation test, which is then usually quantitative in nature. So typically in forensic toxicology, you would do those two tests, a screening test and a confirmation.
And so, is it fair to say that you don't go to a lab, would not go past a screen test to a confirmation test unless something is coming up positive in that screen? Is that correct?
Yes, so the field of forensic toxicology has really advanced in recent years. Historically, when we thought about screening tests were usually things that were not very accurate. They may have tested for a class of drugs and you would get a positive result. You have to figure out why you got that positive result. A good example would be if you tested for benzodiazepines and got a positive result for benzodiazepines, you may have to do a confirmation to say, well, what exact benzodiazepine am I looking for? But as forensic toxicology has advanced, some have tried to get away from the term screening and confirmation because a lot of the instruments that we use now for screening tests are actually a lot more accurate and sensitive than they've previously been, but also sometimes they're more accurate and sensitive than the instruments that we use for our confirmation tests. So typically, now you really have to understand what specimens were provided to the forensic toxicology lab and really understand what their methodology for testing was. It's not as easy to paint it with a broad brush to say, oh, absolutely this is a screen or absolutely this is a confirmation.
Well, you're not telling this jury, sir, that your laboratory would be using something that you can't rely on and or is not credible, are you? Are you saying that?
I'm not sure what you're referring to. No, I'm not saying that.
Okay. And so I would assume and hope that whatever immunoassay testing or whatever testing that you are performing at your laboratory would be one that is credible and reliable for you to represent to the community and your clients that trust you. Is that right?
Yeah, so we do not rely on the results of other toxicology labs. We perform all of our own testing in-house. When a sample comes to us, we may have heard of testing that's been performed externally, but we perform all of our.
She is asking everything, okay? Because she wants to ensure that they can keep that alcohol was found in the toxicology report. She wants that to stay in the jury's ear, or mind.
Our own testing in-house. And then yes, to your point about our methods being accurate and reliable, we validate our assays, we run quality controls and different checks during our testing to make sure that the results that we are reporting meet a level of high forensic reliability.
And so your assay, the ones that you rely on and the ones that you deem credible, tested positive for this cocaethylene, right?
Correct. The second urine specimen.
Now, in regards to the NMS lab, you see, if I can draw your attention to the 889, and we just talked about that you don't move on to a confirmation test unless there was something that was positive in the screening test, correct?
Yeah, again, to
Yes,
try.
sir.
Well, so I think that you're trying to use the terms screening and confirmation for the tests that we performed. Our laboratory really does not define them as a screen and a confirmation. The tests that we perform, we define as a drug identification. So we did not perform two tests. We performed a single test, a drug identification of these substances. I would not characterize it as a screen or a confirmation.
I wasn't speaking about your test. I asked you to look at 889 of NMS.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. When you use the 4 numbers, I thought you were referring to my report. Yes, and I do not have a copy of NMS Labs report.
Okay, can I?
It's in the autopsy report.
Oh, I apologize. I do have that in front of me.
Yes. You see there that NMS moved on to a confirmation test for cocaethylene. Do you see that?
Can I just ask a clarifying question? So I'm looking at an NMS Labs toxicology report that has a work order number that ends in 6889.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yes. And do you see a confirmation test performed for cocaethylene?
So this is really getting slightly outside of the testing that we performed, again, because this is the testing that another laboratory performed. NMS Labs lists the tests that they performed, and they included a cocaine and byproducts panel. So from looking at the report, it does appear that they would have looked for cocaine in those byproducts, but again, I cannot testify today to exactly what NMS Labs did. I don't have their data and their results in front of me. My testimony is really about the testing that occurred at the CFSRE.
So it sounds like he was called in by the state to debunk that alcohol was found in her system, but there was another lab test done that showed that alcohol was found in the system. So I don't know if the other testing that said alcohol was found in the system, he's saying he can't vouch for them. However, I don't know if they were for the state or not. However, so that's what his job is, to try to work for the state and say that there was no alcohol. But she's, tripping him up because she's saying there's 2 different reports that shows 2 different things. Sometimes the defense attorneys will go and hire their own experts. They won't use just the state's findings. They will, if they'll have the state finding, and then they'll go get their own findings, right? And that also creates reasonable doubt, because if you are using 2 different professional organizations or experts, and they come up with 2 different results, then that also can lead to reasonable doubt as well. Okay, let's continue.
I'm not asking you about the data that they utilize. I'm asking you, with your expertise, as you being a forensic toxicologist expert, is to only share with me about looking at this toxicology report. And so that I'm clear, you're an expert in the field of toxicology.
To ask an answer. He's already testified.
You know what that lab names by screen test?
So again, I'm happy to sit here and look through the report. Certainly they will lay out what testing that they used and what testing was performed. But again, this was not within this.
So it sounds like he's now trying to get amnesia and saying that this is not their report, but he is a PhD graduate, right? Or, he's a PhD graduate, and he should be able to read the report, but now he's getting amnesia, saying because it's not their report, he's saying he'll be happy to go through it, but because it's not something that he did, he doesn't want to vouch for it.
Scope of what I prepared for this testimony. I mean, I'm happy to take a look at it.
Would you do that for me, please? Just to see whether or not there was a confirmation test performed for cocaine. Would you please do that?
Again, based on the report says testing was performed for cocaine and byproducts panel. Let me. And if you look then to 2 pages later where they describe what's in the cocaine and byproducts panel, it does list cocaethylene as an analyte within the scope of that testing, yes.
Thank you. And that's for the scope of testing on the confirmation, correct?
I believe NMS would characterize this test as a confirmation test, yes.
Okay, thank you. Now, let's talk a little bit about the CFSRE lab. Do you see that?
Yes, by laboratory, yes.
And the number in regards to.
So when they get nervous, what do? They start drinking. And it seems to me that, you know, he did a report and it was not found. It just mistakenly, or, you know, I ain't gonna say mistakenly, it's just, you know, just so happened to not be there. But however, when he was able to read the other report, it was there. So he just, you know, because his expertise, he's able to read those lab reports. So she basically had him to read the other lab report. And, you know, I'm sure he's feeling away.
Or 0092 or
0090 for the cocaethylene that's present, correct?
Yes.
So, when the testing was performed for this particular urine, do you know whether or not the levels for any of those metabolites, do you have those levels?
No, so for our testing, our laboratory, while we obviously test for cocaine and these substances, in this case, when we received the specimen, we received our qualitative results and issued those results back. We were not asked to perform a quantitative test. We typically wouldn't just do that on our own. There was no request for us to perform a quantitative test. So in this case, we did just perform a qualitative identification of cocaine and the metabolites.
Okay, so you didn't perform a test to give us levels, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, so you can't tell us what level that cocaethylene is in.
So with exact certainty, the exact concentration of that cocaethylene, no, I cannot tell you what the concentration is. However, as I mentioned previously, and is present in our data packet, there are pieces of the data, what we call peak area. So as every analyte is detected by the instrument, it generates a response. And that response is proportional to the amount of drug that is present. So a higher response means more drug, a lower response means less drug. So we can use that response to see whether or not it's a high or low amount of cocaine. So I cannot say that there's exactly, say, 120 nanograms per mil of cocaine. However, I can see what the response looks like based on what comes from our testing.
So is that a no? You can't give us a level?
I cannot give an exact quantitative level for the cocaethylene.
Now, let's talk about what you were speaking with the prosecutor about in regards to, I think you said 8,000 nanograms per milliliters, is that right?
Approximately, adding those two numbers together, yes.
Okay. Now, is that the way that you would have calculated how much of that metabolite or cocaine, parent cocaine, was in that person's eye or in that matrix?
And so our laboratory actually does not quantify, does not test for EME, as I mentioned previously. So this is not a practice that I would do on our cases because we don't have that data. I was asked whether I'm familiar with that practice, and I am familiar with that practice, but that's not something that I personally do.
That's not what you would do. Is that what you're saying?
I was not, so as a forensic toxicologist, in addition to the testing that we do, oftentimes we're asked to render an expert opinion. And as you sit and prepare for that expert opinion, that's something to consider as part of that process. I was not asked to do that as part of this case. So I would have to, and every case is different. You can't say that necessarily you're gonna, because the drugs you find in every case are different. You have to take cases and evaluate them on a case-by-case basis. So it's really hard for me to sit here and speculate what I would have done because I wasn't asked to do it.
Okay, well, you're a forensic toxicologist, correct?
Correct.
You are the director of a toxicology lab, are you not?
Yes.
You've had significant training in forensic.
He said that he was not prepared to give an expert statement today, an expert witness statement today, you know, even though, and now she's saying, she's running down his credentials, saying that you're a professional, you're this, you that, you have these credentials, and you wasn't prepared to give an expert witness statement today.
Toxicology.
Yes.
So I'm asking you, as an expert, if you were trying, giving you a hypothetical, you're given a case, and you're trying to determine how much parent cocaine is in a matrix, in this instance, someone's blood, would you utilize the method of combining the parent cocaine and EME?
So I think I would consider that, again, because that is a process that's out there. I certainly would not use that definitively. I would understand that that's a way of looking at kind of a generality, but definitely not anything definitive.
Exactly, because with all of your expertise and training, that is not a method you would use.
Yes, as I stated.
Now let's hypothetically utilize that method and come up with a number of 8,000 as apparent cocaine in someone's blood.
Look how the judge is looking at her. Like, are you gonna say something? Are you gonna object? You're gonna say something? You're just gonna let her trick him up like that? You're gonna do that?
That person originally took. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, through the training that we have as forensic toxicologists, we generally do not train individuals on how you would calculate a dose of a drug that someone used. Certainly through someone's expert opinion and training, they may try to do that, but that's not something that we typically do in forensic toxicology, to try to calculate a dose.
So what is pharmacokinetics?
So pharmacokinetics is the way that your body processes a drug. So it's broken down into 3 different areas: absorption, which is how the drug is absorbed into your body; distribution, which is how it's distributed throughout your body; metabolism, so breaking down cocaine to its metabolites. He
was there to try to say that they didn't find any alcohol in her system, but she put his expertise to the test. She basically said, you're a professional, you PhD, you've done this, you're the director of the toxicology department. So with that being said, 1, you should know how to read a report. So she made him read the other report, the other organizational report. And then 2, she said, from your expertise, would you do it like this or whatever? So anyway, she just basically making him stand on business. And he said he wasn't prepared to stand on business that way. Okay. Yeah. She said, there for the state. Yeah, he's here for the state.
And then excretion through the kidneys into the urine. So pharmacokinetics is that process of what's happening in the body to a drug. And it's a very vast field. There's a lot of other parts of pharmacokinetics as well.
What is it used for?
So in forensic toxicology, a lot of the substances we deal with are not legal. You can't give them to humans. So a lot of times when we think about pharmacokinetics, especially for substances of abuse, we would look at pharmacokinetic studies generally in maybe a rat, and we'd see, well, how much drug was given to the rat, how much drug we were able to detect if we collected the rat's blood, how much of the drug was excreted through the rat's urine. There are some substances that are used in humans, like cocaine. I mentioned previously that there were studies looking at individuals ingesting capsules of cocaine, and through that same process, you can look at then peak plasma concentrations, as I mentioned, metabolites, all those different aspects.
So you agree with me then that pharmacokinetics is sometimes used to try to determine a dose amount?
I would not say pharmacokinetics is used to determine a dose. I don't think that would be the correct way to state that.
Well, how would you state it?
The only time that this is really done in forensic toxicology is with alcohol. So you can look at, and you may be familiar with this, but you can look at, based on the amount of ethanol in someone's system, you can back extrapolate to potentially how many beers or how many shots or how many glasses of wine they took. The reason we can do that with alcohol is because of its pharmacokinetics and its linear elimination from the body. In the world of other drugs on humans, I'm really not aware of any pharmacokinetic properties or calculations that you would do to correlate those drug concentrations back to the dose. And in this case, the blood concentrations of cocaine back to an exact dose of cocaine consumed.
So you're stating that it is never utilized to try to determine a dose, pharmacokinetics is never utilized in your field to try to determine a dose of cocaine? Is that your testimony, yes or no, sir?
And so I am not in a forensic case like this. I am not aware.
As I said, ever, is pharmacokinetics ever utilized to determine a dose of cocaine?
Well, as I mentioned before, in terms of a rat study, actually this can be, there are certain research studies where they may look at in the hospital trying to see how much they can control the amount of urine that is collected over a certain amount of time and do quantitative testing on that urine. There are some research studies that would look at trying to then calculate back the dose of a certain drug that was consumed. So there are aspects of forensic toxicology where that may come up. But in terms of a case like this, where you're looking at drugs for a legal case, that's a whole different realm from what we're talking about today.
So the answer to my question is yes, it has been done.
Yes, it has been done, but again, under the different.
Listen, it's funny how he says, yes, it has been done, but under other circumstances or whatever. Then he looks over at the state like, oh shit, I'm failing. Y'all ain't gonna call me no more. Oh damn shit. But they're gonna cross and try to get it back, you know.
That I mentioned.
But is your testimony in a case like this, you should not do that. Is that right?
It is my opinion that if I was asked to calculate the dose of cocaine consumed, that is not something that I would do.
And so then, based on your testimony, there is nothing we can do to try to determine the parent amount of cocaine that was in her system at the time of ingestion.
Well, now you're asking two different things. The dose of cocaine would be the amount of cocaine outside the body that is then ingested, in whatever form you want to ingest it. The amount of cocaine circulating in blood is a whole different thing from the dose. That's not the dose. That would be the circulating concentration of the cocaine.
I wasn't speaking about this, sir. I was speaking about trying to determine the amount of cocaine that Ms. Benning would have had to take in order to have the numbers that we see in her blood. I'm asking you a simple yes or no for this jury. Is there a way to try to make that determination, sir? Yes or no?
So I think I'm getting confused because you're talking about the 8,000 nanogram amount, and these are really two separate things. Yes.
Don't worry about the 8,000. Simply
Yeah.
listen to my question.
Let me ask it maybe in a more.
Here go the judge. Let me ask it. Let me ask the damn question. He getting sweaty palms, y'all. Listen, right quick before we put it back on, we only have about 20 minutes to try to meet this goal. When I do these court breakdowns, y'all know Court TV will snatch my video. Well, not snatch the video. They just will demonetize it like they did my other 3 that I've done so far. So I just ask that you guys help me meet this goal. I think we need about 17 or 16 more super chats, $5 super chats in 20 minutes, which I know is like real fast, but I know y'all can do it. I know y'all can do it. So let's put it back on, but let's try to meet this goal before the 20 minutes is over. Thank y'all so very much.
In a quicker way, can you tell us whether she took an ounce, 2 ounces, or a kilo?
There would be calculations to potentially rule out really large amounts or really small amounts. I don't think that there is not a calculation to get an exact amount in the middle. To answer the question.
And so there are calculations to make an assumption.
Yes, and in a hypothetical world, to make an assumption, yes, I believe someone could do that.
And what would they use to do
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of factors. I mean, there's factors in terms of, right, you'd have to look at the, you'd probably take some sort of concentration that you're starting with from what we would detect. There'd be different parameters within the body, understanding, was this a larger or a smaller individual? Did they have potentially a lot of blood, a little bit of blood? What is their different physiological parameters of them? Time is a really important thing. If there's a,
I'm not asking about the factors, I'm asking about what would you call it? If it's not pharmacokinetics, in order to get to that answer, what would you call it?
okay, so I would call it that it would be some sort of pharmacokinetic calculation, but it is not the entire field of pharmacokinetics.
He just don't know how to answer the damn question. He too smart for his own good. He definitely, yeah, he's right, Rita, beating around the bush to the max. You hear me? He just do not want to say what would that the defense wants him to say. Basically, he is trying so hard to steer away from what the defense is trying to get him to say. That the defense is basically trying to say there leave room for what's the word for accusations, right? That it could have been this amount, it could have been lower than that, it could not, you know, there's wiggle room in how much was in her system, and he doesn't want to say that.
Well, so then you can use pharmacokinetics to try to get to an assumption as to what amount of cocaine she took, correct?
Yeah, so she's trying to get him to say that there's an assumption of it could have been more or it could have been less than what they noted.
Sure, yeah, somebody could, in theory, do that.
Thank you.
Watch you get that cup.
In regards to that, have you done that calculation for this case?
No, as I previously stated, that would not be something that I would consider doing.
Now, and a number of, well, let me ask you this. What is a half-life of cocaine?
So the half-life is defined as the amount of time it takes for a concentration to half. So say, for example, at 1 hour, it's 800, and at 2 hours, it's 400. The number is halved over 1 hour. The half-life would be 1 hour. And you would expect then the half-life to continue 400 down to 200, down to 100.
Okay, so what is the half-life of cocaine?
I do not have that number off the top of my head. That's not something we typically would memorize.
Okay, but you will agree with me, there is a half.
Correct. There is a half-life of cocaine. I just don't have it off the top of my head.
And would you utilize that half-life if you were to employ the methods of pharmacokinetics to try to get to a number? I know it may not be accurate, but would you utilize that half-life?
Yes, if you were going to do this back calculation, one of the things in that equation that you would use, I would imagine, would be half-life. Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you. As you sit here today, the number that you see on that NMS lab that's with the CFSRE lab ending in 889, you'll agree with me that I believe it's 78? Is that right?
Yeah, so the econyl methyl ester concentration is 7,800.
No, the parent cocaine, is it 78?
Oh, I apologize. Yes, the parent cocaine concentration is 78. Yes.
And that number in and of itself is not just an abnormal high number, is it?
No, but again, this was not something
All I'm asking is about the parent cocaine and that number 78. That's not an abnormally high number, is it? Yes or no?
No, it's not that 78 alone is not a large amount, but again, there's a lot of factors that would go into it, and I've not reviewed this, so I'm not exactly sure sort of the time.
So I see what she's getting at. She's trying to say that the cocaine that they found in the system wasn't as much as they alluded to. So they tried to say that it was not a recreational use, and the defense is tackling that, saying the amount that was found in her system wasn't really that high, you know, given circumstances. It really wasn't that high. I guess with all the other stuff in her system, that particular whatever drug she's pointing out wasn't really that high.
Course of this.
I wasn't asking about the time, I was just asking about that number. Okay. And so you'll agree with me also that that number 78 is in fact a number that someone could take on their own?
Ooh.
Yes or no, sir?
Well, certainly cocaine can be taken on its own by an individual, yes.
Thank you, sir.
So she didn't got him to admit that the level, the amount that they recorded could actually be administered on your own. Somebody could have done that to themselves versus somebody else doing it to you. So she just literally got their little expert to say that it could have been administered on your own. Now, y'all already know the state is getting ready to come and try to knock that out the ballpark, okay?
Dr. Patulski, Dr. Carney had testified that she adds the EME to the parent cocaine to estimate the total amount of cocaine level before it began creating the NE or breaking it down. Do you agree that that is a common method to use to estimate the value?
Yeah, so one thing I didn't explain it, cocaine is a very unique drug. It's actually quite unstable. It can go through different processes of breaking down by enzymes or through hydrolysis. And it can break down to things like benzoylecgonine and ecgonine methyl ester. So because cocaine is sort of so unique, there have been different research studies looking at saying, okay, well, because we know it's an unstable drug, is there a way that through different calculations, we could potentially estimate how much cocaine was present at the time the blood sample was collected, rather than a few days or weeks or months later when that cocaine broke down.
And your testimony as a toxicologist is that you would not estimate that value because your testing is very precise, but you don't disagree with Dr. Carney using that.
Correct. I'm not disagreeing with Dr. Carney, right?
And the state never asked you to calculate a dose, but you can't calculate the dose Ms. Benning ingested. Judge asked you about an ounce or a kilo, but it could have been much smaller than that, especially if it was dissolved in a liquid. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, one of the factors is, as I mentioned previously, time. There's also, a lot of times if you're going to do some of these pharmacokinetic studies, there's assumptions you're going to make. One assumption being that this was likely a healthy individual, normal processes, their heart was beating, their blood was flowing. As you're outside of those normal processes, some of these calculations start to break down. So again, I was not asked to do that. And again, it's a very complex process, and I just don't believe that that's something that would really be, I don't think you could probably do it with the information that I have and the understanding I have.
That's what I was about to ask. You cannot calculate the dose Ms. Benning ingested.
Correct.
Thank you. Those are all my questions, Your Honor.
Now, you stated now, when I asked you the question, you told me that that was not a method you would use because it wouldn't be a definitive method. Are you changing your answer now?
So, right, so when you say definitive,
No, you said definitive.
oh, sorry. When we use the word definitive, for example, in this case, when you have 78 and 7800, I don't think it would be wise to put the two of those together and definitively say 7,778. If you're going to use it as an estimation for the amount, that's one thing, but using the word definitive here, in my mind, that says to say exactly what this concentration is, and again, that's not, I don't know exactly what Dr. Carney's testimony was, but that's what I meant by not being definitive.
Actually, I think you said in a legal case like this, you would not utilize that type of method to get a definitive answer.
I believe I said that based on the calculation of the dose when you asked me.
By adding EME and the parent, right?
He's talking about your question when you wanted to see if he could determine a dose.
No, my question was to determine the
What
parent
is your
of
question?
cocaine. I want to be clear that you're saying if we were trying to determine the parent amount, we would not take the EME and the parent amount and put them together.
So Yeah, so again, I want to just make sure we're taking these two things apart. We're not talking about dose. So now we're talking about circulating amount of drug in the body. And in this case, taking the parent amount of cocaine and then the substance that the cocaine broke down into, understanding that those two substances are related and doing an estimate based on that is something completely different. And that's what I was just asked by the prosecution. Again, this is completely separate from the question of dose, how much someone ingests.
And when you were talking about the CFSRE record that did not show the fentanyl, and that would be 202300092, this was an opiate screen, was it not?
So our testing for
Yes or no, sir? Was this an opiate screen?
So
one, you're way behind what was asked on redirect. So number two, let him answer the question.
So the testing that we performed on both urine samples includes opiates and opioids.
So this was in fact an opiate screen?
So I would not characterize the testing that we did as an opiate screen. We consider it sort of a broad-based drug screen that includes opiates and opioids, as it does stimulants, benzodiazepines, and everything else. So if fentanyl was present in the first urine sample, it was in the scope of testing, and if we would have detected it, we would have reported it.
Okay, so I just want to be clear, it would have, if fentanyl, if it was there, it would have been positive.
If fentanyl was present in the first urine sample, case 20230092, if it was present at levels detectable by our analysis, yes, it would have been reported.
So it could have been there, but it just wasn't at your detectable level.
Yes, that's how forensic toxicology testing works. As I mentioned with the levamisole and the cocaethylene, if something is below our threshold for detection, right, we would not be able to detect it, therefore not report it.
I just wanted to be clear so that the jury
What is your
understood
question?
is that it was possible it was there, but it just wasn't above the level.
Correct, and we have a pretty low detection level for fentanyl. I don't know what it is exactly off the top of my head. I'd have to go look it up.
That's right.
Yep, that's the judge again. What is your question? What is your question? What is your question?
This state is done with Dr. Kowalski.
We will say something to you, Paul.
Your Honor, we can approach that matter.
Okay.
So they're doing approaching the bench. I mean, the defense is working hard. She really is. The state is definitely trying to, make it seem like it was something that the defense is saying was not. Okay, so that's where we are right now. I think, the state wants to make it seem like she was not on drugs, not drinking alcohol. She, was too happy to be a mother, and she was being very careful with what she was doing. And the defense is saying, she could have did this to herself. Stop trying to blame my client. She already did all them other drugs and all that other shit. She could have very well did this to herself, okay? Devon said the judge is giving Collins County, girl. You are right about that. Giving Collins County, baby. I think that the judge is definitely partial to the state, but it may be a lot of judges partial to the state. It might be, I think they probably go out and shoot the shit together. And this particular defense attorney is not out of Nashville. She actually lives in Texas. So it is a Texas judge that came in to fight for him. Now, I don't know what made him choose this attorney. Did I say Texas judge? I meant attorney. She said, did they check if she has a history with mental? Which one? Did they? Jade? I'm not sure. But they flew her out of Texas to defend him. And I'm assuming it's because his dad works at Texas. What's the name of the some Texas college he works at? Texas A&M. I don't know. I can't remember the name of it. But works at some Texas college, and so she must know his father. Oh, thank you so much, D-Ham and Women Business. I appreciate you, D-Ham. Are you following this story about this football player? Hold on, let's see what they're saying.
Chain of custody, if any.
We don't, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then they don't have.
But thank you so much, D-Ham. I appreciate that blessing. I don't know if we may have ran out of time. Let me see. I think we have 6 more minutes, you guys. 6 more minutes. 6 more minutes. So I'm gonna pause and see if anybody want to bless your girl within these 6 minutes. We are far behind, but it's okay. I'll reset it. Y'all know I will. I'm not gonna pause it for 6 whole minutes. Let me read some of y'all comments. He might be innocent. You said he might be. He might be innocent, but not only he might be innocent, they actually have to find him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And it's so much reasonable doubt. There's no way they'll be able to find him. Yeah, Texas A&M. Okay, thank you. It's no way that they're going to be able to find him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. There's no way. There's no way. Yeah, he is connected to the mayor and other prominent people in Texas. So that's why I'm thinking that they brung her out from Texas to fight this. She said because Nashville doesn't have a lot of strong defense attorneys. Oh, they don't? Oh, I didn't know that. But I didn't even know that you can fly an attorney out from another state. But I think you still have to be licensed in that state. So she probably got a license for Tennessee, but she is a Texas attorney. They don't like when she said you said. They want her to say, sir, if I understand you correctly, you are. Oh, they don't like it when she say you said. Is that what you're saying? You said? Yeah, I'm not sure. But D-Ham over here in Women Business. I love it. I love it. I love it. Let's find out what they're saying. She said, yes, they're licensed. Oh, so she's licensed in Tennessee and she practiced in Texas, but she in Tennessee now. She said, no, I'm just now hearing it from you. So I'm going to replay this live to get the full story. Okay, cool. It is an interesting case. The people that's here now can tell you it's been interesting. They trying to send another fella. Let me show you him. Another young brother. He mixed, but he's still one of us. And she one of us too. Actually, they just both high yellow, okay? But they trying to send him up the road. Life without parole. They're trying to accuse him of poisoning his 5-month pregnant girlfriend because he told her he didn't want to have a baby with her, right? So, however, they trying to accuse him of poisoning her, but they have yet to link him to any poison, any cocaine, anything thus far, okay? They have failed to link him to it, even though the state is adamant that he did it. The state just adamant. The state just want to send somebody upstate. The state just want to put somebody in jail, put somebody in prison. I think they get a quota. I'm beginning to think that the state must get a percentage. You know what I'm saying? Like a stipend, a reward, a bonus or something. God damn. She said they both look biracial. I think they both are biracial. A Texas attorney is generally allowed to handle a Tennessee case through something called pro hack vice admission. Oh, okay. That sounds all fancy. But let's get back to this damn Collins County judge. I mean, Nashville, Tennessee judge.
An issue about Detective Reese.
Well, I think she's trying to, he's the one that collected it from the hospital, so I believe she's just, are you talking about 227?
You just heard what she says up here. They got a third sample they want to get into. Do you have issues about that?
I don't know which sample it is. There are a bunch of tests on this.
It's the one that Detective Reese collected on February 27th, 2023.
He's just talking so harsh to her.
Technically 1604. It's the urine sample. It went to the MPD crime lab.
From what time?
February 27th, 2023 at 1604.
He needs to retire because his patients are thin.
Issues or not?
I would like for him to testify to establish it. But if he can testify that he was the one that picked it up and labeled it and put it in the Metro Nashville Police Department's vault, I have no issues with that.
Okay. All right, let the jury step back then.
So we are calling it suspended purpose this time.
Fair. Okay. I don't know what you're all going to call it. Would Dr. Brugaleri know when the second sample was taken? Is she here?
Judge, we have Dr. Medvin here, and she has that information.
Okay.
When the judge made the statement yesterday about the defense is trying to say that she administered the drugs herself versus him giving it to her, I already knew then that the judge knows the defense strategy. And I think the judge know that it's going to fly. That's going to fly. She just had that forensic expertise guy admit that the level in her system could have been administered by her. Because, you know, yesterday they was trying to say is no way that she could have consumed it herself. But if you think about it, if you really think logical, if you think for a second, if she could not have consumed it herself, then how the hell can she consume it if somebody else make it? There is no difference. The only other way is if they open up her mouth and force it down her throat. And they have not said that that is an option. So to say that she said it tastes funny, whether she made it or whether somebody else make it, the fact that she can drink it, she can continue to drink it, then that means that she could have drunk it if she made it by her own hands. So that's not, the way they're thinking don't make sense. That he's the only one that could have administered to her. No, she could have done it herself. She was the other person there. And she was a well-known drug user.
Just have a seat back there. The jury's making a short brief. And is Dr. Minton out there? Yeah, bring her back in so we don't have to take another break.
So he's talking about taking another break. I'm not sure why. Hold on. He is giving Mitch McConnell. You're absolutely correct. He is. I think the jury is out right now. She said, I love these kind of cases. I want crime shows all the time. Got my husband. I think you mean I watch crime shows all the time. I got my husband watching them now. Oh, for real? Yeah.
Yes, step up, raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Have a seat. After you testified previously, the jury out hearing the defense has made a statement that you made up. Did you do testing on the company?
I did.
They've made a statement that you made up that test.
So now we've seen this one. This is the one that they had to call her back because it said that she made up the thing and she did not. So let's move forward. Hold on one second. Give me a second. Are we where are we? Let me see where we are.
Image, which is 45F.
Okay, so she's back explaining how she got to the results for the bio fluids that bioparticles that was on the blanket.
Can you describe what's shown here?
So the first image was trying to get kind of the width of the stain. This is trying to provide the rough height of the stain, but same thing, trying to provide a scale for how large the stain size was.
And the next image, which is 45G, can you describe what's shown here?
So this is if you flip the comforter over. Some of the stain was actually visible all the way through the comforter onto the back side. So it was a smaller surface there, and so the ruler is provided to help with scale.
And
There,
can you describe
and so
the process that you went through to analyze this particular item that was submitted to you?
So these are a more unique type of testing that NMS can perform. It's called a forensic investigation. And so in order to perform the test, we have to identify where a stained area is. We also try to look for areas outside of that stained area that we can use as control samples, just to try and ensure the accuracy of the result. If there's some sort of response that we're receiving from the fabric, it should also be in those control samples. So it helps us kind of determine what is background versus what is this additional biologic material bringing to the case at hand. In addition to that, we also prepare some external samples that are external to this blanket. So we'll find some fabric that is unrelated to the case and use that and test that in parallel as well. So as part of analysis here, it's identifying the region where the stain is, and then identifying a relative size and area that we can actually cut out and excise from the stained area. That becomes our case sample for testing. And then areas external to that, so in this case I chose areas towards the outer portion of the comforter that did not appear to have stains, that I could also cut and use as my control samples.
And did you cut that portion of the comforter?
We physically chose to cut the portion that we saw that was stained all the way through, just because we thought that represented kind of the most saturated portion, and had our best chance of trying to extract whatever that biological fluid was. So yes, that square directly was what we tested.
And what type of testing was performed on, I guess, the sample that you collected?
Once prepared and we were able to, using methanol, we were able to extract off what was in the fluids off of the comforter and the fabric and the batting. The test procedure that we used is just a general basic drug test. So it ran under what's called an immunoassay. Immunoassays are looking for general drug classes. So it'll look for things like cocaine. There's a test that can be performed for the drug class of cannabinoids or marijuana. Another test can be performed for opiates. So it's looking for very general common drugs of abuse and misuse. Specifically in this case, Metro Nashville police let us know that they were interested in having us test for fentanyl and cocaine. So in those instances, I only prepared controls and control samples with known quantities of cocaine and fentanyl in those controls. I didn't prepare with any additional drugs that could have been within a soap.
And can you describe when you're testing, did you receive any results?
Yes.
What were those results?
So because we don't know how efficient our ability to extract those biological fluids out of the blanket maybe, we don't quantify. It's really a positive or a not present. And so in this case, we were able to detect the presence of cocaine and benzoylecgonine in the stained portion of or from that stained portion. We did not detect fentanyl or norfentanyl.
So there was no fentanyl whatsoever, but you did have cocaine and the BZE.
Not in that stained portion.
And can you describe that testing process when you run kind of a first screen? Is it possible that the concentration of the sample that you're running is too high for the, I guess, testing equipment that you're using? Can you describe that testing equipment a little bit?
One issue and limitation of immunoassays, just because they work like a lock and a key with antibodies. So the antibody is your lock. If a drug is present, it's the key, and it goes and binds in. And then it's called a sandwich assay because we have a detection molecule that then comes back on the other side, and so they sandwich the drug in between. And one limitation of performing a style of test like that is that if you have too much drug present, it can cause something called a hook effect and lead to a false negative sometimes. And that means that you have so much drug, it's binding to the antigen on this side and the detection molecule on that side, and they aren't able to fully form that sandwich. And so it can actually interfere with your ability to properly detect.
And what was the, I guess, concentration level of the cocaine in this sample? Did you have to run it multiple times?
We did have to repeat the test. The initial attempt with the cocaine exceeded the ability on our confirmation testing. It exceeded our analytical range. So when we create these tests in the laboratory, we set them up so that we can run them repeatedly, and they fit the vast majority of our case samples. So concentrations usually fall within a specific analytical range that we're looking at. In this case, the case response exceeded that original analytical range. So we had to go back and repeat it on dilution to ensure that we were getting an accurate result, that there were no interferences, that things were running properly, and we had an accurate response coming through on all of our indicators and acceptability for the criteria.
And what is a typical BZE amount?
The analytical range normally for that method runs from 50 to 5,000.
And I guess, what was the concentration of the first test before you diluted it?
I'm trying to recall it, and it far exceeded the 5,000. We ended up repeating the test at both a 10-fold dilution and a 100-fold dilution because we weren't sure whether a 10-fold dilution would properly get it into that analytical range.
So you diluted it 100-fold to be able to test it properly?
We ran it both 10-fold and 100-fold on the same run. We ran them together.
And was the amount at 10-fold, was that too high to report? Is that why it was diluted again?
I don't recall off the top of my head if the 10-fold result was acceptable, or if the acceptable result came from the 100-fold run. I'm sorry, I don't recall the exact.
My notes based off of our many conversations about this particular test is that you diluted the sample 100-fold to get it down to a level that your machine could test.
We ran it on the same batch. We were able to run both dilutions, and so that's where I'm fuzzy on if we accepted the 10-fold result.
Can you find that out by tomorrow?
Yes,
Okay.
it's in
Go ahead.
it's in my notes.
The notes are here.
In the back of the room, yes.
Come on
You
with
got
it.
her notes?
Sure. Where are
I believe the binder.
Perfect. Are your notes included in the litigation packet?
No, these were just my notes for trying to remember all of the runs today and trying to keep all the work orders straight.
You made recently.
Yes, in preparation for today.
Okay. Fine, then we'll make a copy.
Oh, actually, I think they might actually be in there. I'm sorry. Okay, so in this case, we were able to accept the 10-fold dilution. The 100-fold dilution provided a consistent result with the 10-fold dilution. So the two results were very consistent with one another. Since they were consistent and the lower dilution was acceptable, we accepted that result.
Okay, but you did both of them, correct?
Yes.
And you said that the results were consistent.
Okay. 1 second. I'm gonna misstate that. I misstated that. Both results, I was looking at the high control sample. Both results were accepted from the 100-fold dilution. And those were the ones that were reported, both the cocaine and the BZE were accepted from the 100-fold dilution.
Not the 10.
Not the 10-fold, I'm sorry, I misstated that. I was looking at one of the control samples. I apologize.
The 100-fold dilution, so if the amount that you typically would test would be 50 to 5,000 nanograms, we are now looking at up to 500,000 nanograms per milliliter.
Yes, so 5,000 to, yes, 500,000. Yes.
And what was the result?
So we reported as positive, because we don't have a true quantitation running there. We reported as positive, we don't report that quantity.
What was the number that you obtained to be able to report it positive?
In the data, the reported result, or the quantitative result was over 87,000. Yes, over 87,000.
And 87,000, that is nanograms per milliliter.
Sorry, yes.
I'm going to object to her attaching a number, a quantitative number, because she has stated she could not do it.
Okay, well, you can cross it.
Okay, so it looks like the defense attorney just said, I'm going to object the number that she's trying to use because, see, she's coming behind her and trying to get this doctor to say that the number in which she just had the guy say before was not a number high enough to where she couldn't administer it to herself. So the state attorney is trying to get her to say that this, trying to actually just discount what she just got out of the other guy. So she just objected. Let me see what the judge says, but it's a slick thing that the state attorney just tried to do, because she just tried to make it seem like she wanted to re-put that number back into, in use since the defense knocked it down. So let me see what she said.
100-fold dilution, so if the amount that you typically would test would be 50 to 5,000 nanograms, we are now looking at up to 500,000 nanograms per milliliter.
Yes, so 5,000 to, yes, 500,000. Yes.
And what was the result?
So we reported as positive, because we don't have a true quantitation running there. We reported as positive, we don't report that quantity.
What was the number that you obtained to be able to report it positive?
In the data, the reported result or the quantitative result was over 87,000. Yes, over 87,000.
And 87,000, that is nanograms per milliliter.
Sorry, yes.
I'm going to object to her attaching a number, a quantitative number, that she has stated she could not do.
Okay, well, you can cross-examine about that. Do you want to ask any other questions about that?
I have other questions for her about this, yes, Your Honor.
The data is in the litigation packet.
Yes, it was provided to our office as well as defense counsel. They have all of that underlying data. Dr. Muthen, can you explain why the report is just reported out positive?
So we don't know the efficiency of being able to extract those fluids off. And so we were repeating on dilution to ensure that the sample fell within a proper quantitative range and that the ratios were acceptable, and our acceptability criteria is met, but we do not report quantitative values in these instances because it would be hard to assign a number and a value to what's going on there. It's more a qualitative presence of was it present or not present. So that's why I do caveat, that is the response off the instrument. Whether that is a true, fair, and accurate concentration, I would hesitate to say that. It was a large value that needed to be run on dilution in order to get an acceptable result.
And again, that is because as a toxicologist, everything that you are doing, it is precision, it's very precise, as well as there are certain reporting limits and kind of rules about what actual amount and level you're going to report out versus just a positive. Is that right?
There are requirements about what needs to be run, and I'm looking at, there was a note that there may have been some questions on the original calibrator curve for that run. So anything that was attempting to be reported with a qualitative value was going to be repeated to ensure the accuracy of anything that went out with a number attached. We know that the quality controls that we run several quality controls that are just positive at a high concentration, positive at a low concentration, qualitatively, in addition to those numeric controls. Those were all acceptable. So we can accept things as qualitatively positive, qualitatively not detected, but we were not able to report things with a new.
Okay, so I'm gonna chill on that, you guys. We're gonna chill on this one. We've been on 3 hours. Whatever they come out of this, I will let y'all know tomorrow. I want to do, it is 5:54. Y'all, not in this live. So we're gonna close out on this one for today, y'all. We're gonna find out about the more about this blanket tomorrow. I thought they were done with it and then they didn't came back to it, but I see what the state is trying to do, but I don't know how long they're gonna go tonight. But we're gonna find out tomorrow what they said about the blanket. So we're gonna cut this off. But y'all, hold on. Oh, that's you. Okay. I heard my alarm going off. I'm like, what? So I want to, girl, y'all, I want to do this on members only. We're going to have a members only because I want to do a breakdown of an interrogation. Baby, when I tell you this interrogation was one for the books, but I want to do it members only. It is 58 minutes long. I'm not going to start it right now because I need to rest myself. And but I want to come back and do this breakdown of this interrogation. Now, the name of it is, because I know y'all like to get ahead of me. Or maybe I should just, let me see, what was this? This happened in 2018. You know what? I'm not going to tell y'all because I know y'all going to get ahead of me. If you're interested, it's going to be a members only. I'm probably going to come back in an hour or so. And I want to do this breakdown of this interrogation. It's a little less than an hour. And it's so good. I watched the whole entire thing. And baby, it just gives you a little bit more insight of how people can sit there and say, I didn't do it, 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 I didn't do it. You know, and they sound so convincing to the very last hour you found out that they is guilty as sin. All right. So before we get up out of here, and thank y'all for sticking with me. I know it's not a large crowd, but it's okay. It's okay. We're going to work through this. Okay. Thank you, New. Appreciate you, darling. Thank you, Kim C. Appreciate your brown eyes, Joanne, Tawana, Binkity Bink Bink, the real MF, Candy Girl, Perfectly Imperfect, Divine. I am Glenn for real. She hit me 2 times. J. Lou, Super Leo, and D Ham is all up in women business. Like I said, we're gonna close out today on this case, and we're gonna come back members only in about an hour or so. You know, I don't want to be too late, but I do want to get some outside photosynthesis. Okay, so but it is a interrogation that I want to break down, and y'all, oof. But it's going to be members only because I do need to, and the only reason I'm doing it members only, not because I don't want other people to hear it. It's just that I do need to have my members, you know, give them something. Because, you know, I tried to, you know, at one time I was doing it like every week and then I done fell off. But I got to start giving my members some content that I don't give to the public. Okay. All right. But this is going to be this interrogation, y'all. So anyway, I'm about to get off. Thank y'all so very much. And I will be back, members only, to break down this interrogation. It's about a son that unalived his mama for some insurance money, y'all. For some insurance money. But nevertheless, we'll come back. Thank y'all so very much for participating in this live stream. And I will talk to y'all soon. Talk to you later. Bye.
Because they can't make $1 without mentioning down one of our names.
Jade! She kept talking about that family.
Hoes over there.
She kept talking about that family. 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 That family. She kept talking about that family. Talking about that family.
These motherfuckers don't be wanting to listen. Because they can't make $1 without mentioning down one of our names.